so if everyone's okay with it, I'll just call the meeting of the Joint School Board to order, July 16th, 2018, and we'll begin with a roll call. Shane Wells had indicated he would be absent. Dave Ruth?
Yep.
Amy Hanavan?
Here.
Brian Winslow?
Here.
Keith McGuigan is on vacation. Christine Dabrio let us know that she would be absent. Catherine Brosnan?
Here.
Susan Levinson? Here. Rosalind Shavda, I believe, will be joining us. Kelly Gordon?
Here.
Bruce Patrick? Vacation. Debbie Hinrichsen?
Here.
Misty Lowe?
Here.
Erica Helm?
Here.
And I believe Carrie McMahon spoke with Mr. Rooning, and he is absent. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We need 8 for a quorum, so we do have a quorum. Okay. This is
Even without Rosalind.
correct. Yeah, I didn't mark her with a check.
Yep.
Yeah. And I did a quick double check count, so we're good. I believe everybody has met everyone, but I'm not sure if everyone has met Nate yet. I think he's been going to meetings.
Hasn't got an order yet.
No, I'm not
Okay.
coming.
Hello.
He'll see you next Thursday.
Okay. So Mr. Byrne is the Director of Student Services, and we are now beginning, as of July 1st, our new year, 2018-19. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to,
Update about the office.
well, just anything, you know.
I can tell you that our first 2 days of moving, we've painted the offices. The landlord agreed to pay for the paint, so Nate and I were in shorts and t-shirts for our first 2 days. Our business administrator has started and has jumped right in and knows he has a steep learning curve, but seems to be doing a good job. The auditors were here today, and they'll be back probably next month or the beginning of September to finish up. I did learn that the historian in the district gets asked a lot of questions. I spent a lot of time with the auditors today, different auditors, and then the principal, Mr. Campo, was here too. And so we're off to a start. The normal, typical challenges that you would expect, but everybody seems to be working well together and pulling through it at a very busy time of the year. When we go down to the business administrator's report, I'll update you on some of the things that are going on in the business office right now and the challenges that they have. I'm very happy that Mr. Byrne and Ms. LaValle were here for a year before they took over that bureau, because I've had very little to worry about there. Of course, the challenge here was we painted for 2 days, I worked for 1 day, and then I went on vacation. So Nate did a good job of being here every day and being here early and making sure that things were running and working with Mr. O'Sullivan and giving him the lay of the land and orienting him. And so today is really the first day that I've been back since my vacation, and things seem to be moving along nicely.
Is our business administrator going to be joining us?
He won't be this evening. He had a previous commitment that he couldn't reschedule. He will be at the next 3 local board meetings. He was running off the calendar that we gave him, and it had this as the 4th meeting, and he had committed on the 3rd. He apologizes for that, but he will be at the 4th meeting every time there's a joint board.
And which people from the audit company were here today?
The principal was here, Mr. Campo was here,
Okay.
and then I would say probably 8 employees.
Other people?
Right. So
Yeah.
what happens with that? We have a call into the auditor, the audit committee. We will be meeting with the auditing team. So the process generally is that they come in, they take a look, they have to do their initial tests and so forth, and they apply procedures. And then they will go back and analyze that data and determine what the scope will be and how many items they're going to actually ask to have pulled. How many invoices, how many POs, how much matching they'll do based on those results. So that will continue. Probably will come back in August.
Yeah.
So the audit committee will be meeting with Project And we'll also be meeting with Melanson, and we just have yet to schedule those. So
Yeah.
it's a little difficult over the summer to have those scheduled, but that will be ongoing.
And what will happen is there'll be electronic communication going on back and forth from the business office to the auditors as they ask for specific. It's not like the process stops. They just won't be back until late August or early September for an actual physical visit. But it was a very, very busy day with lots of questions, which were basically historical. But there was questions like when the preschool balance was returned, Marjorie had put it out by the year. Remember, 14, 15, so she had broken it out, so they had questions about that. They were easy to understand once they were answered, but just like historical questions that they're learning too because they're new auditors. But it was a busy day, but it was a good day.
Okay, so Rosalind Chavda has just joined us, so we now have 10 members present. So when we take our votes, we will be tallying them. I also wanted to point out that Gary's here this evening, and he typically would film these and record these meetings for us, but there's been a conflict with the town of Northwood on meetings for the fourth Monday of the month, so we're very lucky to have him and fortunate to have him here this evening. We do appreciate you
Thank you, Gary.
being here.
Thank you.
I'm getting an intern, so.
Excellent. This will be wonderful. And this way we can get this recording, and the local districts can place it on their websites and their YouTube or what have you, and people can see what transpires here. I wanted to point out to everyone that I do have a folder here for signature, and as you know, only things that have been approved can be signed. So I have in front of me some contracts for SAU employees. These are the extended school year items. These are all have already been approved. The speech and language pathologist, bookkeeper, based on changes from the prior meeting, and Mr. O'Sullivan's contract that was voted upon at the last meeting. So I will sign these, and I'll just read through this one before I sign it to ensure that it ties with what we had agreed to. So just so you're aware of that.
Sue, after you've done signing them, can we see them, please?
We can pass these out. These are
I'd like to see Mr. O'Sullivan.
sorry, however you want to do it.
So we did not offer this paid sick leave like we did in the past to
We only had one employee that had that.
our one employee that
I believe there's
left with $35,000.
I think there is a bold face line on page 2 of the contract.
Okay.
There-
Okay.
It's a
I just
draft.
want to make sure you
There's
guys
the line. Yeah, you'll see it. It's like,
Okay, okay.
Okay.
All right.
I thought you said right.
Yeah.
what do you think I said?
It's a lie.
Lie. Oh, a bold
Like,
face
lie.
lie.
That's what it sounded
Wow.
I thought he said that.
That's what it
Lie.
sounded
No.
like you said.
Okay.
We missed the
It was a
end.
Freudian.
I think
No, he
that,
said
no,
lie.
I know
Was
what
it a
it
lie?
is. It's just your brain,
I've
the
never heard
saturation
anyone
that
say
you expect to
lie.
hear. Okay, so every meeting that we have anything to sign, I'll make you aware of what it is, and of course nothing will be signed that you haven't already approved prior. Okay, so that brings us to our public comments, and we have no public here. We will have public comment at the end of the meeting as well, if anyone does arrive. Don't know if we have any non-public at this time. I may ask if that we go into non-public just to quickly go over your evaluation, because that comes up in September. So we should have some headway made in August. So I may ask to do that, see how our time looks for it. It would be brief, and we do that, by ourselves. But we'll see how that goes. I wanted to tell everyone that I have gone ahead and made a copy of all of the policies that are on our website. And so I'm going to be bringing this to every meeting. I'll place it, toward the center, and so if anyone has anything they would like to look at, okay.
Just joint.
This
These is just joint.
just the joint.
Yeah, they're making U.S. Stratford one.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
All right, and if we need more of those, I can make a few more copies. I just was kind of rushing around today a little bit. The dividers are there, but I haven't had a chance to indicate the A, B, C yet, but they're there.
We
Thank
just
you.
appreciate, thank you. Yeah. We really appreciate
Thank you for doing that. That's a lot of ink, paper, and time.
Mostly time.
Went pretty
Yeah,
quick.
yeah,
Okay.
invaluable.
The next item we have is the review of manifests. Now, Ms. Hendrickson is our treasurer. Did you have those?
I have them in my car, and I can
Okay.
run and get them in a second.
Okay.
I do have a question, and I guess I want to just put this out there because I think it's something we should look into. I know that for many of you, you've never seen the manifest for the SAU. So, you individually have manifests for your own districts, so when it's passed around, I don't know if you just have one of your board members that really scrutinizes it, if that's their job before everyone else signs it. But one of the things I have a question about, and I'm just throwing this out there, I think we need to ask someone about it, is the reimbursement for mileage and when that applies and when it doesn't apply. For instance, if, say we had a former employee that just left, and if he went even to the graduation at Coe Brown, that mileage was put on there. So every week, where is your place of employment? If you work here and you go to Northwood School, is that part of your place of employment? I just think that we should understand this better. If you're at a conference for a weekend, and we pay for the conference $800 and pay for you to stay there, if this is on your days that you normally would have off, do we pay for the mileage to reimburse you to drive there if it's up in the White Mountains and back?
So
Yes, that's my questions, and I'd like someone to help me find the answers to those.
Federal guidelines say that, like the address of this SAU is your point of employment.
Right.
And if you go down the street to a satellite place, or if you go to a conference, that is considered, you should be reimbursed for mileage for all that. That's the federal government guidelines.
because otherwise you would come here, you would sit here from, let's say, 9 to 5, and then you would drive home.
Right.
But if your job requires you to do all of the driving that their jobs
Right.
require, then absolutely.
Well, I guess when I look at it as, my husband's self-employed, and he has different places where he works, and he is not allowed to use the mileage for any of those jobs that he's working at. So, because you're going to a job.
He has for his taxes.
However,
Yeah.
no,
Yes.
it's different if you're going to get materials or do that type of thing. But if it's your job site, like this is your place of employment from your home to get here, then that is not something that you.
But if you go from your home to a conference, you are federally allowed.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think one of the things that we can talk about with this is it would come down to, I think, the difference between commuting is in terms of accounting literature. It comes down to whether you're commuting or whether you're just doing something additional.
Right.
What we can do, if you have questions about it, would be to look at the. You would have to take a look at the handbook to indicate what's there, and then you can always ask the auditors for that, just that discerning little detail. But I think it probably will,
Okay.
be
That's
easily.
another
Easy
way
to
to
answer
Question
your
on,
question.
you say the manifests are in your car?
Yeah, I was going to go get for the
My
last
understanding
week's.
is they shouldn't be leaving the building. If you are
Oh,
going
no,
to be
they're
the
my
treasurer.
copies of them.
Oh, okay, if
I
they're
get my-
copies,
These
okay.
are my copies,
All
my
right.
personal copies, so I have copies of everything I've signed.
And we had a problem way in the past where
Yeah, I
something
know what you're
goes
saying.
on.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, the originals are here with all the backup information, but those are my copies to keep for my records.
No problem.
And I brought them, but I didn't know if we were in that time to do it tonight.
Okay, so
I can get them.
you
in a second.
okay, raise your question, and yeah, so Debbie is the treasurer. She comes in and she signs the manifest. If you look at policy, that's how it's defined. There are laws, statutes on the book that indicate that treasurer should not be signing unless the board has reviewed manifests. However, we know that happens typically with payroll, not necessarily with payable manifests, but this is a little bit of a different entity. So that's something too that the audit committee can look at and determine perhaps a procedure to work on that. But at least you can see the manifest, and as you say, you're not removing them from the building. They sometimes the SAU will bring them to you at a Stratford meeting,
Right.
but they are have custody. Okay, all right, and these are your copies, just
Yes.
so that everyone can be aware of what goes on.
Mhm.
In the past, we used to see manifests, and so it was just an idea to just circulate them so that you're aware. So, and I think Mr. Rooney has a comment.
So
on
I'll just
this.
give some practice on mileage, or what my expectation of myself is. When I take mileage, whether I'm going to a conference or in between schools, it's always from the office. So I'll give you an example. I know you weren't talking about my attendance
Right.
at that conference,
Right.
but I was at that conference, right? I took mileage not from my house. Actually, what I do is I look at the distance and I take the smaller number. So even though I'm driving from Elliott, I still take mileage from Northwood. And I do that. And sometimes that's going to work out not to the benefit of the district, but it's a standard procedure that we use to make sure that we're not, taking mileage from here because it's more, taking mileage than there from it's less.
So you have a consistent practice to take mileage from the office.
Yep. And as far as in between schools, we take mileage when I drive to Northwood or Stratford or Nottingham. I take it both ways if I'm coming back to the office. If I happen to be leaving from there, then I don't take mileage. I just take the drive from here to, we'll say Nottingham, if I drive from here to Nottingham, I'll take the mileage there. But if I leave Nottingham to go home, we don't take mileage back to the office. So I think that pretty much covers every instance we get ourselves into when it
So
comes
it
to mileage.
sounds like, I know that the guidelines in finance, looking at the IRS regs, that typically there's a difference between commuting
Yep.
and travel, work travel.
Right.
So that's
I think I think what should happen is that we should look at it with the understanding that no one should be paying to do their job, right? So nobody should be paying to do their job. That's why we're all taxpayers and we pay into the system and we make sure that we fund the joint board and all of our individual boards, the budgets. No one should be saying, oh, well, I'm not going to take mileage. No, if you're doing a job for the joint board or for the school district, you should be getting mileage. And I know we have a situation at our school where some people didn't take mileage. And it shouldn't be that way. It should never be that way. Because they're, I don't need it. Well, it's not about you needing it. If you're doing a job for the school, you should take mileage. And no one should hesitate to take mileage because we feel like, this says 23 miles, but I really only think it's 19 miles. Like, we're not going to be splitting hairs like that.
Well, I understand.
It doesn't give us an accurate read either,
No.
or an accurate sense of what it actually
What it really
does.
does.
When
Yeah.
everything accumulates, it's a
So
lot
I
of
think
money.
it's a healthy
Yes,
conversation.
I'm just trying to make sure, I want to make
Right.
sure.
But it's also the law,
Yeah.
I believe.
Okay.
So,
I agree, but what we also don't want is to push the cost back onto the employees because they're like, well, I don't want the scrutiny.
Mhm.
So I don't want to see. I don't work outside the home, but I can't even imagine driving my car all around and deciding to take the lesser number of miles. It's not like we're. I think that people should be doing mileage. They should be doing the appropriate mileage.
I think you should. I think it's good. I think it's good to have your treasurer surface things to you and have your conversation. I believe that there are guidelines out there, federal rules
Yes.
around taxation and so forth that speak to it. So we should just make sure that
Right, and I think
in
meeting with
compliance,
auditors
that's all.
will also just help to clarify and they can show that information. I just wanted to bring it up because some of it, I don't know, I thought it was a little fuzzy.
Okay, so we can all just ensure that we understand the guidelines, the IRS guidelines, federal guidelines. There is documentation on that, and that's it. Follow it in that manner. And I hadn't heard about Nottingham, but typically, sometimes people just forget to do their mileage or whatever. So, all right, so those will circulate. The manifest will circulate. I think that there will be a process around that at some point in the future. That will be discussed with the board. And having finished that, we are now on to the approval of our minutes, which you will find on page 4 of your packet. All right, we actually begin, I believe, on pretty much on page 7.
Motion to approve the minutes of June 18th.
Okay, so
Is
Mr.
that the
Ruth,
date or is it another date?
it is,
Second.
Mr. Ruth has made the motion to approve the minutes of June 18th, seconded
2018.
by
Better say that.
Ms. Helm. See you have that? Okay. All right, we'll move on to,
I'm sorry, Sue.
yes,
Do we want to say that the meeting was not, it was held where it was, put the address, because it wasn't held in our normal place?
right. Let's see what it.
I don't know that that's necessary, but it seems like,
Mhm. Let's just,
We can put it right up the header.
right at the header.
Yes, because like this one says, regular meeting, SAU, number 44 office, so we could write.
Right, so we'll put it
Oh,
from
wow,
Northwood
okay.
School Library. Thank you for that. That's a good idea. Moving on to page 9. I had a change on line 161. Do not, board chairs do not have the authority to sign anything without board approval. So that would be my change there. Is there anything else on 9?
Oh, do not, where?
On line 161.
Do not have the authority, okay.
And I'll make a note of that here. Just not. Page 10, any changes there? Okay, page 11. All right, and that pretty much finishes everything. So if there are no other changes, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the meeting minutes as amended? All right, is anyone opposed? All right, so that's a unanimous approval on that, with 10 members in approval. All right, we will now move on to a review of the financials, which you will find on page...
Wait, I'm sorry, I just saw a discrepancy, sorry.
Okay.
Because on line 197 it says Ms. Hendrickson left at 8:34, and then on 2:30 it said Ms. Hendrickson moved to adjourn at 8:48.
Oh, I didn't leave. I just went outside to make a phone call and came back.
put somewhere.
I
in
know.
there.
Oh,
But
okay,
you want it
stepped
to be
out of the
noticed.
meeting, got it.
Yeah.
You didn't
Oh, there it is
leave.
on line 202. I did see this.
Yes.
She returned at 8:30.
Oh, I missed that one at the
Right.
top, sorry. All right, touch my button, sorry.
That's okay.
All right, I'm
Good
going
to
to
be
just
looking
pass
at.
this
Thank
to
you.
them so people can...
You could mark it as stepped out instead of
If you have any
left.
questions...
No, you had said step, I just thought email link stepped out left.
Oh, I didn't make these, so.
All right, so we're okay with that?
Yeah.
All right. So moving on, you will find a review of the financials beginning on page 13 with a note from Mr. O'Sullivan in regard to what is happening. He's basically talking about the overspend.
May I clarify something?
Yes, Mr. Ruth.
Okay, since I probably wasn't here and this has been discussed, are we making plans so that we won't have this similar problem in
The
the
overspend?
future? And my second question would be is how are we as the three towns, how do we compensate for that
Right. So,
overspend this year?
So, Mr. Ruth, what happened was that we had two individuals
Okay, I understand that.
Right.
No problem.
that retired or left, moved on. So all of their accruals are what is hitting. At our last meeting, it hadn't seemed like it was so large, and I believe that it actually isn't as large as being noted here. I think there's maybe some errors, so we'll address that. In terms of your question, this fund would come out now of the surplus fund that we have. So
That
that's how
will
that
be
would be
turned out
addressed,
to
and it will be
good.
addressed through audit,
Okay.
is my understanding. They'll look at it, and we'll get our final audited, and then we'll make our motions around how to handle that. One thing I would say and suggest, and I'm not sure if it's possible, but it's something I would like to discuss with our auditors. Typically, you will see accruals. This is a modified accrual basis of accounting because it's a municipality, if you will. You will see accruals for sick time and for other paid time off items. If you look through our financials, you'll note in the footnotes that these accruals are not in our balance sheet. So it might behoove us to have accruals of that nature flowing through, and then you would not see this kind of issue.
And we don't have anything like this in anyone else's contract that will have this kind of issue again, as far as with the sick.
You will have, when individuals leave, based on their contracts, they are allowed to take some of their vacation time,
Right.
but not sick time.
Right. And that changed last year.
We had
was it?
one contract, Dr. Godomsky's contract had that item in it.
Yes.
For
And
one
so I ended up, I had to sign a check. Well, it was a $35,000 check that's not in this one. This is only for 2 weeks, by the way. The last manifest to pay him off any of his unused sick leave and vacation time, and it was very costly. In addition, we also had the manifest before that. We had to pay out the buyouts for insurance, which were, what are the buyouts for insurance, Scott? Are they,
Next year or
what
this year?
were they this past year? Was it 10?
13.5.
13.5 for
Yeah.
3 people, right?
Those buyouts should be in the budget.
They are.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I'm
Okay.
just saying, so all of this, plus then the additional $35,000 with our superintendent leaving, was very costly. So within like a month, we were paying out $100,000 between that, our business administrator, the insurance buyouts.
So you can
But
see
in
the
our
manifest.
own, in our own budgets, we have a trust fund where we've started to put money in.
Yes.
So, because this happens all around the state, between police and schools and state.
Yeah.
So I don't know if as an SAU, are we allowed to set up some type of a trust fund to start putting a little bit in every year in our budget, or we're not allowed anyway as a,
No, we're not.
okay.
But we have a surplus.
the
We have
towns
a lot
do.
of money in our surplus right now.
No,
We have probably, is it $400,000 in our surplus right now? $473,000?
Where is that reported?
Okay, why don't we quickly just lay out what's happening then? People have interest in the unfunded, in this balance. So what's happening is we currently have 2 sources of surplus, if you will, the preschool and then the SAU. The SAU is different, as is the preschool, from our local districts in that we cannot carry over from year to year. If you look out there, you see that, I believe it was Goffstown, made a serious error and did that to the tune of several $million. So our surplus amounts, it's an unassigned fund balance, will carry over year.
Okay.
We have in our September 25th packet a full analysis year over year that can be shared with anyone that doesn't have it. It can be, if you would like, we could resend that or have it for next
I think
next
the new
meeting.
people probably don't have
Okay.
that.
If it's the board's will, we can have that, recirculated. The fund balance at the preschool was distributed to the individual school districts about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago.
April 8th.
And that was done based on the percentages of how things were paid in. The current unassigned fund balance that we have is, we have an agreed upon procedure with Melanson Heath, and they are looking at that and determining some cash flow, which we will bring to the board probably August, September. And we are looking to try to have a policy as to what is required. Because, as you know, if you hold on to that, it could help with your tax base back in your local district. So that's what's happening. Does that answer the
Yep.
question?
And it really was a small amount 5 years ago. In the last 5 years, it has grown from $50,000 to $474,000.
Yeah, that's fine.
That is,
And I don't have a problem with that,
Yeah.
because that's what I'm saying,
Right.
that we'd set a trust fund, but if we have that to save for a future problem, that's good.
and we never had that.
No, okay.
So,
I have a quick question about the manifest.
Sure.
We're looking at them, but there's no supporting documentation, and so I have no idea what
Right.
for.
And so the next time, like Dave said, I'd have to ask, I don't keep all that information. So I would have to ask our superintendent if he would have Charlene send a manifest with all the supporting documentation, probably for the 2 periods, because I come in every 2 weeks to sign and go through all the documentation. I think that would be really good for people to see.
Yeah, I looked at it, but
All
I
right,
mean, I don't know
so
what I'm checking.
would it be the request of the board to have the manifest circulate the same way they do at the local? Okay, could we get a motion to that?
No
effect?
USB?
Sure, I'll make a motion.
Really?
Okay, so Rosalind is making a motion, seconded by Brian, that we'll just have the manifest with the backup material
I'm sorry.
circulating.
Oh, so you're going to do discussion, so then I can.
I'm just
Yep.
I'm just for Amelia to help.
Yeah.
All
Okay,
right.
yes,
Okay. We open for discussion?
yes.
Yeah, I don't have a problem. I think originally we set up that a treasurer would be the one out of 15 that would go through all of this.
Right.
I think if we start getting all these invoices and 15 copies, and I think we're just gonna make it.
It would just be one.
Just like we do at
One
your
copy,
regular
right.
meeting, but it would have to be the superintendent or the business administrator who would be responsible to bring them, because like you said, they don't leave the building, so I don't have them with me. I only have my copies of the documents I signed.
Right.
Sorry, Dave,
So-
I cut you off.
But I just
Right.
don't think again, my opinion, I don't think we need it. If we get this, your job is to go through that,
Right.
make a note. So if you made a note, oh, there's a real high fee here,
Right.
we had a question, we'd ask you, you'd kind of say, okay, yeah, that's normal. Remember, we voted on this in
Right.
November, and we just paid the bill, but I don't want to make it complicated at these meetings.
Well, if we just have them in folders and you can just look at
And
the
if
top
you don't
page,
wanna
if you don't have to look at it if you don't want to, but if somebody wants to understand, something that is interesting about looking through the manifest is that you never see at your local meetings, what is spent on a lot of the grants, say Title I grant or whatever. So I can look that all the grants come through the SAU and the checks are written back to your district to reimburse people or to pay off whatever they bought, say Title I, Nottingham.
salaries.
You have your Title I person who purchases things for a reading program. So if they go to Amazon, all that documentation comes to us and it shows that it's coming from your Title I grant. And that would be on there.
Okay, so the action item from that will be that Mr. Rooney would speak with AP manager
Yep.
and just see where those, the manifest packet is and if that's doable. Is there any other discussion on that?
So I just wanted to make sure we're not making your job more difficult. Because as I say, maybe that should be an action item. Is it just a matter of carrying everything downstairs, or do you have to make extra
I think
copies?
it's really a matter of me talking to Charlene to see what that's going to create for logistical. So here's my note. Ask Charlene if we can do this. Because what I'm visualizing is that Ms. Hendrickson comes in and signs the manifest, and then it's taken apart, and checks are sent, and this and that. So I have to see what. So I wrote down that I will check with Ms. Hodgson. And
Because
and
it's
see if
also
that-
possible, for any of us to pop in and look at it.
Yes.
So, which takes the burden on,
Yeah, the challenge is
creating
you
more
meet
stuff.
you meet once a
Right.
month, so I don't want to have to take it apart and put it back
She can
together.
actually just make a copy of
Yeah.
the documents, and we can have it as our copy
Yeah.
thing
And
to
again-
bring to our meetings.
Again, I'll talk to her about that. I just don't know if, sometimes those manifests are pretty big. I don't know what it's going to take in time. So
Yeah.
what I'm learning that I'll
I-
share
I'm
with you
fine.
is this. Charlene manages 5 entities, right? And so everything's about timelines, schedules, structure, and almost an inflexibility that needs to happen to get it all done. I haven't spent as much time with business people as I have over the last, month. So I'm seeing the challenges that she has. For instance, if somebody comes and said, "Oh, can we just run a check and reimburse this today?" No. So there needs to be some rigidity there. And what I don't want to do is overwhelm a very valuable employee. So I will sit with her and talk with her about it, and then come back to you and give the answer. Does that work for everybody?
And Charlene is very
Right.
organized.
So what we can do is
Yeah.
move to a vote on that motion in a second, and then we'll move forward. So all in favor of that?
But wait, shouldn't we find out if it's doable?
Well, I think that's basically what we're
Yeah.
asking in this
Yes.
motion.
Okay.
Okay, so all those in favor? to ask if it's possible.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Not that,
It's
All right,
not.
anyone
should be able to-
opposed? All right, so we have 9 in favor, 1 opposed.
it's up to her.
Why are you gonna be making trouble?
Okay.
That's why you got me back here.
I think,
Yes,
I
no.
think it's valuable
The
for the
financials
board
real
to see
quick.
this.
Yes.
I really do think,
Okay.
even if we just did it for a few months, so people had an understanding, so that when you do see the actual manifest come around, you understand what it means.
Okay. So what we'd like to do now is to get into these financials and just go through them. So this would be pretty much the first pre-close, June 30th, 2018.
Correct, and I've discovered some things that need to be addressed in this. So not all the encumbrances are released. So we're in the process, the goal is to have all of the entities done by the 27th, even though the memo says the 31st of July, to have all those books closed, all right? But as I look at your report, if you look at line 7 and line 15, there's a payout there, but there's also still an encumbrance, so that needs to be released.
Which line again?
Line 7 on page 1, line 7 and line 15. If you look, there's a payout amount, but there's also still an encumbrance in there. So those overages need to be divided by 2.
So you've got the balance at 35,405 and then anticipated at
Right.
35,405, and those were added together rather than netting each other?
Right. So, well, the anticipated should be taken out, as far as I can see.
Okay.
So, and then there's other encumbrances that if you look down that need to be verified and released. So then if you flip to page 7, where it says your net revenue and expenses is 83,393.68. Overspent, it's really 39,324.68 without those other encumbrances, those smaller encumbrances taken out. So I just did that so people could breathe, because it looks a little more overwhelming than it is.
So, on line 34, the buyouts, what is going on there with that overage of the $8,000?
Sorry, which line did you say?
34, the health insurance buyouts.
If you look at the health insurance buyouts, and then, hold on,
Did you want to see these copies of the manifest? Or have you seen them?
I have surprised.
so your health insurance line, if you look back at page 1, line 20, your health insurance line has $13,312 left in it. But your buyout line on page 2, line 34 is over, so what that would indicate to me is that somebody took a buyout instead of the insurance plan. Without drilling down into it, and that's generally what you see.
So, the buyout numbers that we budgeted originally, was that just for the two administrators, or?
No, you have buyouts in your regular, your regular hourly employees, I think have a buyout option, which is smaller.
It's a set dollar amount, I believe.
Yeah.
Versus the 50% for
Okay.
these other contracts.
Yes.
Okay, so we budgeted for the $24,000 that we budgeted. Was that for one administrator and then other individuals, or was that for 2 administrators?
I would have to do a little more work with
Because
that.
did you say that
My buyout
was 13,000, right? And so is
hold on,
Bob's, was
hold on.
13,000.
Maybe there's only 2 with the big
That's
one.
what I'm trying to,
Not clear the list.
because that doesn't equal, doesn't equal.
well, okay. Get it right in. Well, just a minute. I've got something here that will help me explain.
So I will say, if we can just go back quickly to the line 7 on superintendent, if you look at your monthly financial review from the prior packet, it was anticipated that there would be 35,406 there. So that was in fact anticipated there. So I think that there is potentially an error tracking through these because it was accounted for last month and placed in the anticipated column.
Right.
The same thing on 15, I think it was 8663, and so that, I think there might be obviously some
Yeah,
adjustments
yeah.
to be made there.
Absolutely.
So,
Last year's buyout, 13,647.44.
Okay, so, and we budgeted for how many, I'm just wondering why we only budgeted
Bubble
34
upstairs.
I think there's one.
if it was actually gonna
Is there one
be
here?
27.
Bubble?
Yeah. We'd have to look into that.
okay, so can we just verify the question? You're asking for, what information are you asking for on the financials?
For the buyout amount, we
Yeah.
budgeted, I'm just trying to, I'm trying to understand why the amount we budgeted for doesn't equal the amount that the buyouts were.
And what line are you on?
Line 34. We ended up spending over $32,000 in insurance buyouts, okay? But we budgeted knowing that we had 2 administrators getting $13,000 with buyouts, $24,000. So it's,
But you didn't know
Wait a
that.
minute.
You didn't
We
know
didn't-
that.
I think,
No, because your rates weren't in.
hold
So-
on a minute. I think though, looking at line 34, my understanding of this says support staff salaries. And line 34 is there. So I believe that amount relates to support staff. I believe the other amounts are sitting in superintendent. I think. So we should just check that. That would make sense, wouldn't it? Because it's not,
Well, I don't know if that does make sense because you have 13 employees, right?
okay,
And if we look at the total health insurance budget on
Yep.
line 20,
okay. All right,
so 13 times, let's just say,
I think that's the total, that's.
I think that's
It
including
is,
everyone.
it is,
Yeah, I
it's
think it
everyone's.
does. I think
It's
it
just that we were really far off in our budgeting.
Right. Well, one of the issues is that when you're doing your budget, so it's just like when you do your health insurance.
Right.
For instance, here's
Yeah.
some good news,
Yeah.
right? This year, the buyout for the administrators drops from 13,647.44.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
So
What,
much whispering, I can't hear.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So it drops from 13,647.44 to 12,685.88.
Okay,
So you're budgeting before you have those do not exceed numbers
okay,
in the budget.
okay.
So there's a little good news. For you.
Okay,
Because it's not a flat dollar amount, it's
It's 50,
percentage
it's 50,
of the
50%.
cost.
Right.
That way everybody wins.
Right.
and in, but
You're
in
not,
No,
other,
that's fine.
You're not paying for a family plan, and right, and
the
we're
other individuals though are a flat dollar amount.
yeah, but we're gonna take some look at the handbook and do some adjustments and bring that to the board. But I believe there is a buyout amount in the handbook.
Yes, okay.
so when we go back to the superintendent's line, he actually earned, from this position this year, was $168,000, with that additional $35,000 payoff at the end, plus a $13,000 buyout, because I just wrote checks for that. The second half of the buyout, and mileage, and I just want people to understand the big picture, that when we write these contracts, they are much more than the salary. It's so much more, not to mention just the conferences and everything else. It's just a much bigger picture.
So the contracts are public information, and it is true even in the private sector. I would always run documentation on total compensation. So total comp does include all of your benefits, and that is always something that is positive to share with employees because they understand the complete cost to the employer of their employment package. So that is something positive to discuss, and
But the
So-
people at this table are the ones who approve those contracts.
Yes.
So, I mean, I hope you're not complaining about this, because we were all the ones who said yes and negotiated that contract
Right.
and voted on it.
I think, I think at the time when we did the sick leave reimbursement, it was
Well, I think
different
so.
circumstances,
I think
but I don't think I would ever support that
right.
again.
So I think again, here's what I would say about this. I don't want you to come across as complaining. You're pointing out things that you're seeing.
Mhm.
You're just stating facts. But we do have to remember that it is the purview of this board to agree to contracts and to sign them. And no matter where you work, there is a total, I can remember spending hours and hours and hours every week on total target compensation and total compensation. And I do view it as, we would always try to view it as a positive in that you would let employees know
Right.
that in addition to your salary, there are other benefits that you are accruing, and it's a great thing. So, but the total compensation
Right.
package includes all benefits.
I guess what I also am saying, I'm not complaining, I'm bringing information forward so people don't forget, because why are we so over budgeted this year? I'm explaining it. And when you're seeing checks, like $35,000 at the end of the year to write out to someone, you have to think, did you have in your mind, did you understand what that number was going to be when you approved that contract? I didn't. So I'm just bringing that information forward to think about in the future.
But I understand what you're saying, but I mean, I would hope that before we approve any contract, we look at how it affects the big picture.
Mhm.
I mean, before we take a vote, we have to think about the financial health of the entire entity and how any of these situations could play out.
Right.
I mean, I certainly thought about that.
Right. Well, I mean, we're over budgeted by a lot this year, so that's the reason.
But I
The
think part of it
consequence
is
to
that
vote.
the accrual wasn't
Right.
there. So,
Right.
but I do.
But even with the accrual, we argued about the accrual. We argued about whether that we were going to put that into the contract. We did. We talked about that over 2 different meetings.
Correct. We discussed.
I'm sorry, so maybe argue's not the right
Yeah,
word, but we discussed it, and so, but I mean, that's a conversation, that's a discussion, that's something that always has to go into the decision-making, and, that, but I guess my point is that we are the ones who did that.
Exactly. But I'm just saying that now we're seeing the consequence of it, of the vote. So I just want people to see this and understand it and remember it.
Right. So I think you're both right. I mean, the board does approve these items. We did look at spreadsheets of total target compensation, and Debbie is pointing that out and pointing out that we have an overage. Hopefully at our next meeting, we'll understand exactly what that overage, or underage, is, and we will go from there. I'm thinking of it as overspending.
Right.
So.
At the
Yes,
next-
Mr. Ruth.
Go ahead, no.
I just had a question. At the next meeting, the encumbrances should be 0.
This should be released.
Yeah. So then we'll have a much.
And you'll have a final balance
Okay.
in August. I don't think you will have final audited statements until October 1st, which is what we agreed upon with the auditors, but you should have the statements that are being actually audited.
Right.
And those are the numbers that will go forward September 15th, I believe, to the DOE.
Yes.
So those can vary from final audited statements.
Right.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
to go to Deb's point about when we look at a budget or when we look at a contract, part of the problem is the accounting system that we have from the state, where you have the superintendent's salary here, you have his FICA here, you have his retirement here, you have his health insurance here, you have his health buyout over here.
Right.
If we want to do it so we all understand it, we have got to have this changed, and it's just a matter of, all you got to do is cut and paste, because you have a line number. This line number here could be up here, as long as it's still recorded. And that would make it a lot simpler. And I won't say the B word, but I've complained a long time that you can never really figure it out, because they put 55 lines on every page, and then they have 75 pages, and
Put
you're
it all
trying to find
together,
it.
it's a very big
Yeah.
number.
So I agree with
That's
you.
what
We
it
should
comes to.
make it a little bit more so we can read it.
So just to recap on this monthly financial review, the amounts in the packet indicate an $83,393.68 overspend. However, we believe that it will be closer to $39,000 based on line 8 and line 15 and adjustments. Understanding that we will see another financial update in August that will closely resemble what is being audited. There will be additional adjusting entries to those statements, and we will get final audited financial statements as of October 1st. But you'll see a different number here, we believe, come up in August.
Yeah.
Okay. Were there any other questions on these financials? Good? All right. And did we have any preschool?
They did not get the preschool.
Okay. So the preschool, we typically have, but we don't have the preschool financials at this time. I believe if you look at your packet from last month, probably not much has changed.
Correct.
So if you would like to review that, you can look at your last month's packet. I believe we were looking at a surplus on preschool of about 15 or 20.
27.
Okay.
I haven't looked at
All
it,
right.
but it was like 27.
And we will see that,
Is that correct?
we will see those financials in August. So if there's nothing else on that, okay, we will move on. And we will move on to Mr. Burns' report, the Student Services report, beginning on page 21.
So, on my report, I had shared with you just some highlights, one of which the IDA allocations did come in. The total amount for all three districts is $462,140.21. With that, I had started adding the activities in that need to take place right away, two of which would be to ensure that your summer staffing for your SAU staff, so they can get paid over the summer, are put in. I've also started putting in some of our PSAs for our services through Stratford Learning Center and some of the other organizations. It is not complete yet, so I haven't included the full statement in there because it's not complete. I don't want to give you an incomplete grant to review. We do have some allocations from 16-17 that need to be looked at and spent. And once we can get that final number, as we come closer, I'm going to shift some of the monies from the 18-19 grant into that and spend it down completely. I just have to wait until that number is finalized and what we have left. So that will be taken care of. In addition, I had shared some of the child find numbers and shown you where we were at for the entire year, what it looked like. Yeah.
What is 2.9, 2.10, 2.8?
Those are numbers just for Jill to keep track of what's going on. I don't have the full.
I think that's the child's age, correct?
Yeah, that's
Yes,
the child's
yes.
age.
Oh, I see.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's where they're at. So she knows when they're entering, so she can keep track of where they're at and where they will go into.
Okay.
And one of the things she wanted me to make sure that I mentioned was, as of right now, we have a waiting list for our 4-year-old slots, and we are still looking to have some more 3-year-olds. So our 4-year-old is full, but we're looking some 3-year-olds.
For typical.
Typicals, yeah.
How many students do you take usually?
That is about 60 total. It's about 15 per
district?
classroom is what they're looking at as it flexes, so it's 60 total. Okay. So that is what you looked at in the first one with 2.9. That is just her monthly. We included it. We're not going to be doing that every month, but we did want to include what it looked like at the end of the year for the monthly and what was pending, and then what's been the total year. As far as PD, you can see that we have the Summer Academy coming up. Later this week, I'll be going to the Rural Educator Leaders Network up in Plymouth to go over some of what's going on in the rural education field. In addition, Jill and I participated today in a workshop with MSB. And I'm happy to share with you that they have informed us that they are going to be lowering their 9% from their billables to us down to 8%. They're doing that across the state, so that's lowering it down another percent.
Who's that?
MSB is multi-state billing. It's our Medicaid billing system, how we recoup our costs for some of those students.
So they're the third-party administrator that charge 9% for
That's
their
correct.
administrative services.
Correct, and they're lowering to 8%.
Good.
Yes, so that will be some savings that we'll see this year.
Good.
Okay.
Dave's
I
got
have a
it.
question.
Yes.
When you said you were looking at the IDA grant, and you said something about so the SAU staffing could be paid this summer.
No, can I clarify that?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
not the pay, it's the
Yeah.
benefits.
Sorry, benefits.
So your health insurance is done monthly.
Okay.
So I think I explained this before. I'm just going to shift
Yeah,
back
no,
to you. Do you
thank
mind?
you.
You can take
No,
a break.
no,
Help me,
no.
Student
Okay.
Services Director. So what has to happen with your IDEA grant is any activity that occurs over the summer needs to be written and submitted to the DOE by June 30th. So when we get our allocation, which is a pretty tight turnaround this year, we take a look at the benefit costs for one of your school psychologists and half of your office facilitator, and then we write that activity for the year and get it submitted so the benefits can be paid by the grant over the summer. So that's the way that works. So, and then to clarify, do you mind if I clarify some other things? So it used to be that IDA, if you had a balance at the end of the year, used to roll into the next year. Misty's nodding because she knows.
I
that.
remember that,
Yeah.
but I don't think I understand how it works now.
Oh, you don't?
Since the change.
Oh, so how it works now is they give you 18 months?
18 months.
18 months to spend your grants, which sounds pretty manageable. What that means is, like, right now, we have 3 grants open. We have the one we just got that he's writing. We have whatever's left over from last year because you don't want to overspend it. You want to make sure that everything's firm. And then you have 16-17, which is going to close on August 30th. So right now we're working with Fred and Charlie and Vi on coming up with a firm drop-dead number for 16-17, so we know exactly what we have left, and then Nate will take one of the purchase services agreements, most likely, out of the new grant and
Apply that.
subtract that amount, charge it to that grant. And so when Nate asked what would you like me to bring to the board, I'm like, just bring them an update right now because everything's going to change and shift for the better, but it's going to change and shift as we shut one grant down, take a look at that middle grant that's still open, and then see what we have in this year, because this year's grant will go for another 18 months.
Right. And I just want for new members to understand that that grant, the $462,000, is actually, there's a formula where it's actually divided by 3. So each district gets a certain amount. What the SAU is doing is they're combining it so that the school psychologist who services the 3 districts, her salary is coming out of the combined amount. So it's not so much that, you know, Nottingham gets $156,000. It doesn't happen that way. It happens, yes, I know, I've almost memorized its grants. It's consolidated.
So the difference, when you discussed the difference, you said you used to be able to roll it forward.
It just
So you
is
could
automatically
you
roll.
just automatically roll to the next year. So
Yep.
you actually have
You
more time now, if you will. You get another 6
Well,
months, or
no, actually you have
Now there's a
less
now
time.
it's
because it expires on you. Before it would just keep rolling.
It would just
It
keep
just keep
rolling
rolling.
indefinitely.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, and now it expires.
Okay.
So, just to sort of back Ms. Hendrickson up in a good way, your allocations at Stratford was 143, 892.52. What's the second one?
Yeah,
Top.
top one is Northwood.
Okay. Northwood was 161,131.42. And Nottingham was 157,116.27.
That'd be something.
So,
Just wait for you.
Yes,
Okay.
Dave, I apologize. I was
You know,
making a
I don't know if he's
note.
all set. Questions for Nate.
Yes.
Couple students, my question would be, somebody's coming from Somersworth into Northwood for the program. Question is, how do you check for making sure that they actually have an address and they're living there? And the second question would be, we have a student coming from the state is placing him in foster care here. Who's going to pay the bill? That town that the state took him from?
If it's foster care, it's the town that the state took them from. If it's someone enrolling, the way they verify that is through the front office. They have to prove their residency. I don't do that. That's a proof of residency.
Just like they would for any other student.
Right,
Yes.
any other student, correct.
And, I mean, in Northwood, we have a truant officer to verify, because we have a lot of properties that are seasonal and they're used.
Yep,
So here we have a process that,
correct.
okay.
But if you have a concern, I know that you.
We send the truant officer out. Yeah.
You have backed up.
And I've actually even gone out
Yeah.
before. So we generally ask the truant officer or one of the building administrators, or we've done it to verify residency. Northwood
We have-
had.
we
Northwood
call
had.
We don't have it.
Well, you do.
We're not on the books.
You have
State
Mrs. Gary.
have to happen if it's
Newspaper. Is
20
your
times.
truant officer. Nottingham does
There's
not.
193.
We do not have,
I don't believe they do.
I think it used to be the assistant principal.
You have to have somebody designated as truant.
It was Mr. Leatherman in the past. I thought it was just that role that did it, but
Yeah.
I could be.
I mean, it could still be.
I think the job description indicated at the
Yeah.
assistant principal that was part of it, but
I can verify that for you.
I could be old
Wednesday.
data.
It's good to know that you're a truant officer when somebody wants to take on something.
So just to recap Mr. Burns' report, he's discussed with you the IDEA. I know you're not finished yet, but I'm trying to just bring this back. So we've had a quick discussion around our IDEA funding, total and individual. And we have a list on page 22 of our year-end totals and our step-by-step preschool by district. And you've also got your follow-up referrals on your child find on pages 23 through 25. And we've had some questions there around residency, which have been answered. Some clarifications around the third-party administrator. Is there anything that you'd like to?
So I'm looking at the year-end totals, and I see that we're trending downward.
On the preschool?
Well, I'm looking at Nottingham for academic, for speech, for OT, and it seems like as we go from 2015-16 to 16-17 to 17-18, we're going down. Any ideas why?
I spoke with Jill about the numbers, and she said over the course it fluctuates so much it's very hard to confirm.
So this is just 3 years, and so if I looked at 20 years, it
You'd
would probably
see,
be up and down.
yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
It could also be if there's, not as many young families moving into your town.
But you see bubbles of behavior, bubbles of
Yeah, it's
profiles
really
that move
hard
through a school system all
to
the
trend
time.
disability
This
identification.
year's 7th grade
just
classes are
one
huge,
everybody.
and they're made of popcorn.
Correct.
You get to sit on to keep in that chair.
So,
The other part of that is
okay. All right, can we let Mr. Byrne have the floor, please, so he's giving his report?
the other part is something that Mr. Rooney shared, which is when you're looking at this, you're looking at some identifications, and the early on identifications is very hard because you can't make a pattern of that because some parents don't want the early intervention, even if they qualify, they refuse it. ESS says you should be speaking to the school, and they don't want to do it. So that's a big concern. It's hard to do it. We often will look at students. Jill has done this multiple times, gone out and looked at students, said to the parent, your student qualifies, and the parents refuse services. Sometimes it's based on the fact that it's not a full day or 5 days a week, and it's too hard for the parent. And sometimes you hear the word they don't want their child to be labeled, so they don't refer. They hope that they're going to outgrow it. That's really
Yeah, and that happens out of early support. So early supports and services, one of the reasons you see those 2.0s, 2.5s, 2.9s is we're required by law to have those transfers done by the by the third birthday. They're supposed to be enrolled. But there's an opt-out provision in early supports and services that if the parents don't want to share that information with the school district, they don't have to. So, and that happens. And usually it has to do with acceptance or wanting to see how it goes. Or
I like this report.
Yes.
That shows the child find information, the ages 0 to 2, and the actual data on their specific dates. And
Yeah, it's nice because it really shows just how busy they are down there and how busy Jill is.
yeah. And I think that it's good to get the year end. We should probably, all of us look at our packet when we put it into our binders. Remember our year end data is here. At budget time and so forth, this would be good data to refer to. Was there anything else, Mr. Byrne?
The only other thing I wanted to discuss was scheduling the All Ed Committee. What I'm going to be doing is sending out an email later on this month to schedule a meeting with Kelly, Erica, Misty, and Brian as they're part of that committee, so that we can try to sit down and really look at what needs to take place with that. And that's the only other thing that I had.
Okay, so you've got members from each
Yes.
group. Okay. Were there any questions on this report or any of these reports?
I
Yes,
have a
Misty?
question. You had mentioned that you were had a waiting list for 4-year-olds, but we're looking for 3-year-olds. Can you talk a little bit more about what that really means and how
So one of the things
people that might be interested?
what we're looking for is some 3-year-old typical developing to be our model students, to try to really show what the model behavior and where our students with disabilities are trying to emulate, and I don't want to say parrot, but to match skills with, and that helps the preschool to be more inclusive. So what we're really looking to do is balance those numbers out and make it more of an even number of both
And that part I
identified and
understand.
non-identified.
I just didn't know, do we charge tuition? Is that
There
free? How
is
do you
a-
apply?
There is a small tuition, and I don't have all those numbers memorized as of yet.
That's okay.
But
I
you
just
would
didn't know
speak
the
with Jill
process.
if you call up and ask to speak with Jill LaValle. She can guide you through that
The
process.
tuition is much lower than.
It's
3
like,
days.
yeah,
or
it's like
150.
$150 for 3 days,
Yeah.
and $100
Yeah.
for 2 days.
And,
Yeah,
and there is a scholarship.
Yeah.
There is
Yeah.
a
Oh, not a week?
No, it's
No,
not. It's
no.
only a 3-day,
Which is
3-hour
why the other
program.
preschool and half.
2.5.
So it's
But still.
2.5. And there is a
2.5.
scholarship program as well.
should we put that?
Thank
Do you think that we should put that? I don't know. Advertise that somewhere, either on
We
the SAU.
do.
We're advertising it, but we're looking. We have openings for 3-year-olds.
Oh yeah,
Where are we
all over the
advertising
place.
it?
There's one up there. There's one in each school. It
No, I
goes
mean
up.
websites.
Well,
Because I think people
We
go
have
on
it. I
websites.
believe we have it on our website. If not, we can put it on our
Yeah.
website.
I'm just
It has
thinking,
been at different points. I've seen it
Yeah.
recently.
Right.
Yes.
In addition, one of the things we're doing is we are working to overhaul the preschool website currently to make it more interactive anyway.
Good.
Okay, so
If you were to send something that I could put on the Stratford Facebook page,
We have a flyer.
if you have something, you could
Yeah.
a digital flyer, I could post it.
thank you.
We can post it on our Nottingham.
Yes, we have a live.
Yeah. And Christine Dabrio posts to the Nottingham School Board. So, is that what you mean?
Yep.
Yeah. So, I was thinking another one, but we've got a myriad of
We have
those.
I got it. I got it written down.
Okay. So does that conclude the?
yes, it does.
And does anyone have any questions on the student services report at this time?
Oh, that was very thorough. Thank you for all that information. Good
Way
job.
better than what we used to get.
Oh my God.
Who taught you how to write
That
that?
was
Right.
A very wise man.
A very wise man told you how to do it.
Thank you.
Wow, you're a ghostwriter and you got all the credit.
All right, we're going to now move on to the superintendent's report, which you'll see beginning on page 26.
All right, I need to talk to you about the personnel report. As many of you know, we've had somebody out on medical leave in the business office, and that's had quite an impact on things.
Is he feeling better?
If we go into non-public,
Everything's
I can tell you what I can tell you. So in the meantime, I needed to take some action to make sure that things were getting done. You'll see an intent to hire in your packet, increasing Mrs. Cannella 1 day a week, because that's all she has available, to try to fill that gap. And she's been doing a great job. So I put an intent to hire in there just to let you know that I've adjusted her contract hours until the other employee returns from medical leave, and she has been a great asset and is a team player and just rolls up her sleeves and gets it done. So
just a little clarification on that. So you've got the nomination to do that and increase those hours, which the board initially voted for 29.
Yep.
And you've made notation on page 27. And I'm just curious from just the perspective of HR. When you have an employee that moves temporarily to full-time, I see your benefits are noted here.
Yep.
So
as long as it's a temporary assignment, you're not bound to the 29.5-hour week offering the benefits. Is that what you're asking?
no, I'm just trying to understand if she would have benefit of those benefits for this time period?
No,
Okay.
no. I talked to Mrs. Osborne about that because it's a temporary
Okay.
assignment.
All right, so we're just following the letter of the law. So we would take a motion on the nomination to increase that, as the board understands it will have a budget impact. Okay, Dr. Chavez made the motion to accept the personnel report as written. Do you have a second? I saw Kathy first. Matthew Brosnan will be the second. Do you have that, Amelia? Any additional discussion?
Do we know about how many weeks this will be for?
Should be done by the end of the month.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, all those in favor? All right, looks like unanimous, no one's opposed. Okay, so that motion carries unanimously. And then moving forward.
So let's do the personnel. Let's skip to E and then, well, D's done. We just did that. So we can skip to what's in the packet, E, on page 28. I know this was confusing for some people. Mrs. West and Mrs. Osborne have been doing some work on how to streamline our personnel reports and make sure all the information is in there. And so they asked me to bring this to you as a sample. We know it's from Dover, but this is one they like because it makes sure that you as the board know the track, the salary, the step, who they're replacing. The school's not really that important because you're individual districts, and what the position is. And they're wondering if they can move forward with that format rather than the one that we use now, which you just saw on the previous 2 pages.
So,
I feel like the one thing missing is the salary.
right,
Previous
so
salary.
we can see what was budgeted. The biggest thing to me
Yep,
is to understand what our budget impact is.
yep.
Also, does this mean you would not include a resume for anyone?
Oh no, we would still include all those
Still
things.
include that, and then I guess what
And
I
you'd
would
still
say
see the
about all
intent
this.
to hire too.
All right, because it, I guess this other form looks more like a checklist
Yeah.
that people would use in the department to ensure that they've got everything, which I think is valuable.
Oh, yeah.
That's up to you guys operationally.
Oh no, we'd still keep that.
But I would like to know the budget line impacted and the budget impact, as Dr. Shavda had mentioned.
Yep.
And then on some of the contracts that we have, more of the executive level, I think it would be good to know the total compensation that we're actually with vacation and so forth,
Exactly.
because that is a big budget item.
Absolutely.
I'm just trying to figure out how to word that.
So it would be executive versus
Well, it'd
perhaps.
also be like, yeah, it'd be non-CBA
Yeah.
because they get vacation.
I mean, the one thing on this other one that I do like is, that it does tell us if someone's been fingerprinted.
Well, we would still
We
use.
would still do.
Okay, we'd still have
Mrs.
this,
Henderson,
still
we're
see
talking.
this form as well?
We're talking about that, replacing that.
Oh, okay, so
The
we'll
rest
still
of
see
everything stays the same.
this. Okay, so we'll still see this.
So
Okay.
let me clarify one thing.
Mhm.
Okay. You're indicating that this would still be in the packet to
Yes.
the board. And
The resume.
this would be in instead of this
The letter
nomination
making
form.
one.
Yep.
Okay.
And we'd add, based on your feedback, the previous salary, the budget line that is coming up, and the total.
Well, if
count.
this is still in the packet, it
Yep.
could just be here.
Right, right.
So I was under the impression this would not be
No,
there.
we would still use that.
So the budget, how does the board feel about that? You would still have your budgetary impact on the sheet that you currently have.
Okay.
And instead of just this one thing nomination, you would have the chart like with a format. Yes.
I still like the idea of the previous salary and the.
Yeah, we have it.
Oh, so that would be in it, but I like it on
Right.
this chart.
Right.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
issue that I want to, so when you're looking at intent to hire, that's multifunctional, that intent to hire form.
Right.
So what happens first is the building administrator fills out intent to advertise, and that creates the ad, right? They go through their interview process, they do their eliminations, they pick a candidate. That goes on the intent to hire with the budget information, if available, and all the benefit information, and then that's used to build the personnel report. So it stays in there. It's just, their feeling is it's a little clearer for them and maybe a little clearer for the board if we just have it gridded out rather than these individual things that you're flipping back and forth.
So one of the problems that we have is in Stratford is that we have a lot of positions that are stipend positions that are grant funded.
Yep.
And where would that be put, the grant funded?
Well, what I'm working on right now is for admin retreat is working with the administrators. In the past, when they did a hire, they would write that it came out of the REAP grant. I'm going to work with them on the 14th and 15th of actually having the number of the grant, the line number from the grant that it comes from. And that's not to make the board happy, that's to make Missy happy. Because that way she isn't on a scavenger hunt when she goes to pay people. So we could definitely add that information onto the stipend form, the hire sheet, because we're going to be asking them to generate that information too, so we can operate a little more efficiently, without Missy calling and saying, hey, I know it comes out of the 17, 18 REAP grant, but what line does it come out of? So I'm trying to get those grant reports just like the budgets.
Good.
It may take a while, change is hard, but it just makes it clearer for everybody. I just want the board to understand that the documents you're looking at are multi-use documents. They don't just come to you. They're used to track and enter and code. So the more efficient we can make that for the clerical staff, the better off I think all of us will be.
A little more comfortable?
Yes.
So, I'll make this motion, just make it, so I got it all right here if you don't mind.
Yep.
So I would move to approve changing the personnel report that indicates nomination to the report shown on page 28 of our packet that lists name, position, school, replacing, and salary, to be adjusted to reflect the budgetary impact with the prior salary, and that the overall package will still include the employee hire termination form. Is that our understanding?
Yes.
Second.
Okay. So Ms. Hendrickson has seconded that. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Okay, we have unanimous approval on that. Moving on.
Actually, I have something that isn't on there.
Okay.
Secretary update.
Mr. Mooney has a secretary update.
So we have not had any applications for the joint board secretary. I did meet with Ms. Osborne today and asked her to put it in Foster's as a final reach to see if maybe there's some people who aren't going to Ed Jobs New Hampshire or talent to look for positions. So my hope is that we get some candidates and I bring one back to you. Maybe bring one with me for the next joint board meeting.
If you have something posted again, I think putting it on the Facebook pages of the different districts, people do everything online. If they know someone, I think that's...
And someone might not even know that they might be looking
You
at a
don't
job,
have
but
to
pay
they might
to...
have been looking at a
Like
job. It might be
$25
something
or
you
Yeah.
can do. and-
I answered Stafford's ad on Craigslist.
What's the salary or the
$18 to $20.
So it's a range of 18 to 20?
Yeah.
So we could place that on the individual board communication
If you could
pages.
just a little digital...
Will it rerun
list.
in the, oh my goodness,
Ed Jobs?
Ed Jobs, thank you.
Yeah, I actually had it refreshed
So
today.
we'll refresh an Ed Jobs.
Right.
Does Indeed cost, is there a cost? Too difficult there? Just a thought.
I mean, we can ask Linda if she'll.
What do you folks think about that?
First, I'm going to get emailed
I
to.
think, don't people go to Indeed for like full-time jobs? I don't know.
Maybe would be the,
I
okay.
think we'll have better luck putting it on Facebook.
I agree. I think
Because
somebody
it's a
will.
local thing,
Yep,
and
I think
something once,
someone will
once
snap
a
it up.
month.
Right.
You're not going to have somebody
who's
Who wants a
looking for,
full-time
yeah.
job.
When I used Ed Jobs, I was looking for a full-time
Right.
job versus,
Okay.
something like this.
So the board understands that it will be refreshed on Ed Jobs. We're not going to use Indeed right now. We're going to move it to the local Facebook pages.
We're going to have it emailed to you and Christine to put on your Facebook pages. Does Northwood School Board
We have
have?
the community.
Yes, Keith was.
Keith has a, I'm
Keith
an
has
admin on
one.
it too while
Yes.
he's on vacation.
Can we email
so I
this
can-
to you?
Yeah.
Good.
All right. In fact, I'm going to go back through everything I said. I'd email Nottingham and Stratford. I'll also include Northwood.
Preschool and the secretary, those are the two things we're gonna post, right?
Yeah.
Preschool and secretary.
Do you feel the salary is adequate?
We are at
I think
full
it should be.
employment in this country.
I think that if we don't get any applicants after this round of boosting it up, then we can have a discussion about that. I don't know.
We have a very low 3.9% overall unemployment rate, but we still have over the last many years sort of a hang on salary. It's not in keeping pace. So, okay, all right. So
We
anything
trade
else?
out to employment security as well,
Yes.
because this would be,
Oh,
for a work requirement for somebody or.
okay. So we good there?
We're good there. Now we can go back to the agenda.
All righty.
So, a few months ago, I brought up to the board some potential purchases, and at that time we knew we were going to have a deficit, so the board asked that we have that conversation at a later time. We're in a new budget year, so I wanted to pass a few things out. Do you mind passing some? I'll explain this document first. I hope it's enough.
I have them right up
Oh,
here.
okay, all right, it's just I like to keep them.
Yes,
Do you have enough?
I'd have a chance to look at them.
Okay.
One more, I think we need.
Please share.
Yeah, do you mind sharing?
We're gonna
So,
share up
I just
here.
want to show you that this is
For
this.
the old people.
Sorry?
Can I have bigger print for the old people?
Yeah.
Are you asking for an accommodation?
I
Yeah.
agree.
Kelly's got it all
Oh,
the
sorry.
way so she can see it.
We've gone over this, so
Tiny.
that's when it's a spreadsheet, it's hard to
Right.
right. So we took a look. This is in this budget year that started at July 1st. So I'll just cut right to the chase. I analyzed everybody's salary and everybody's other costs. And if you look down and you see the number 28,916.04,
Yeah,
that is the salary savings in the SAU for this current year that started on July 1st, salary and benefits. So as part of that, I need to follow up on my request for the staff. I will let you know that we gave you a furniture spreadsheet a couple months ago. It was somewhere around 9,000. I'll let you know that rather than buy a desk for one of the administrators, I chose to use the budget amount in the SAU, the $1,000 that was budgeted for this year on July 1st, to purchase office chairs for the staff, so they weren't doing things like listing and creaking and sitting lopsided. I was a lopsided sitter. So I pretty much spent that $1,000 on making sure that the staff has safe seats to sit in. That brings my furniture request that I'm going to ask you to approve based on the savings to
Just find the whole budget. I thought it'd make it easier.
I'm like, I need budget, but I have it here.
this one's
This is
better.
bigger.
This one's much better.
Dave, I
Check
heard
this
your
out.
request. So I made,
Yeah, but mine's upside down now.
so out of that salary savings, I'd like to do these purchases. It says $6,476.48, but we can subtract $79.95 from that because when I moved into the superintendent's office and Nate brought his laptop, it freed up a monitor, so I was able to give a widescreen monitor to the receptionist. So we don't need that.
So there's salary savings of 28,916
Salary and benefits.
in benefits, and you're proposing the
I would say 6,400.
6,400. And
And let me tell you what that'll do. That will replace some of the desks that are falling apart and delaminating. It will also replace this table with one big table. It will also match all the chairs upstairs to the blue, which conversely will match all the chairs down here to the ones I'm sitting. The ones I'm sitting
The
in.
maroon.
The maroon. And it will remove
The knitted
those.
chair.
For Rosalind's folding chair.
Yes.
Right, and the metal
Party
folding chairs.
Door gift for you.
I'm good, thank you.
And it will, I think it'll improve the overall appearance of this room and upstairs if we have things that match. And also I worry that some of the desks are starting to delaminate. Like we switched, I ended up bringing my desk with me, and we sort of broke up the old superintendent furniture and hobbled it together so Nate has a desk, which was Nate's choice, don't think I'm being mean. But, you know, I'm here to ask that we do that.
so can we just quick, I don't have the sheet.
Yeah,
Can I just
here,
share this
you
with
can
you?
take it.
Yeah, next to it.
Oh, you do?
I have some clips.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so.
Everybody's holding out.
I got one.
Well, there you go.
Okay, thank
We
you
need
so
more
much.
of this stuff.
Appreciate it. Okay, so,
I was like,
all right, so does everyone have, what, I have a sheet? Okay, so do you want to take all the requests at once so people know what they're taking out of the 28 and then vote? And then I believe per policy, we have a policy around getting rid of furniture and so forth, and we're going to have to vote on that. I just want to look at that. Just look at
Do
that
we have a
policy.
disposal of assets?
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
All right.
So I think we should just to make it all clean.
Yep.
Follow the whole
Yep.
policy. If everyone, how does the board feel about that? You're going to have a request for some software as well. Would you like to look at it all together rather than voting on one and then the other, so you see the overall impact?
yes, and I just want to say, I know that we need some of this, I don't doubt that, and I understand that. But I also want to look at, just because we're saving some money, doesn't mean we should spend it all. And I know, that's just my, you
And
know,
I'm
if we're
not-
saving money, I think that money should go back to the towns, or keep it in case we have, we didn't budget correctly on something, because we don't want to go into a deficit spending again next year, so we want to be very careful.
I agree with you, and I'll let you know, the overall spending that I'm going to propose is half of the $28,000 roughly. So,
And stuff that we have discussed and already agreed that we need.
Yes.
Well, I think though it is, I mean, I think we're here as a board, and it's very important to hear your numbers, hear everybody's different perspectives, consider that you are representing all of your constituents, all of your tax rates and so forth, and understand that. So I think it's a good exercise to look at it all. So it's just conservative financial policy. So with this, the table, how would it be much smaller than this, or about the same? Or just
it'll be about the same as 20 feet.
it would
I
be
think.
one table.
One boat, so it'd be a bigger version of this one.
Must come in sections though.
It will come in sections that we put together, but it will be the boat. So this is a boat table, and so it will remove that place that you put the kids at Thanksgiving.
Oh, so you won't have that little.
You want it right?
You'll have
It'll
a
just be
straight
one big
boardroom
conference table that everybody can sit at.
How big is this table?
This is about
12 feet.
10 or 12.
So do you think 20 feet is big enough then for our board?
Mrs. West measured that.
Okay.
We can remeasure it before we order, and we can look for a
This
cheaper
one's
option.
probably
if
10,
that's
that one looks
what we
like
do.
12, but that's just off the top of my head from here.
But we're gonna
Yeah, count the tiles, Nate, count the tiles, they're 2 feet, count the tiles.
That's what I just did.
All right.
So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one's about 12 feet, and that one's about 10 feet.
Okay, so you're
So-
right. There you go. 22 feet.
Nice work.
Yeah.
And if this.
That's what I was doing. As soon as we started asking, I was like, I'm going to go back.
Yeah, you're cutting out where you sit on
You're
that.
cutting out the
or
kids
whatever.
section.
Yeah, you can't sit back there on that. You can't sit
Okay, so this
board
would,
anyway. There's no room.
right, you lose the 2 feet.
Yeah, so that'd be nice. That'd be a better fit.
Okay. So the 3 shelf open wooden shelving is only $39. And
Yeah, that's just, when you walk in, you see the kids' books on the
Yeah.
bookshelf. It's just that little bookshelf.
Okay. And then the book rack for kids, same thing right
Yep.
there?
Mhm.
Okay. The medium table would go a 3-foot table down here, or
Where's that one?
it's
The
right under
36-inch
the
square.
right under the tables?
No, that's to replace the round one in my office.
Okay, so all right.
No.
So that would replace that round one. Okay. And then the chairs would just be, the plan would be to
Match them.
get everything matched and be consistent. And then the desks are desks that, they're going to be a total of 4 of them, and they're for employees.
So would we
3.
have to buy all of these this year? Could we, buy a portion of the things this year, and then if we have a surplus at the end of the year, buy the second half, rather than buying, I know, we need some new furniture, but do we need to buy it all at once? Rather than waiting to see if we have a surplus next year. Because this isn't budgeted. And I know you're showing us that we have some savings, but, and we saw this year what happened.
And it is true that your accruals are not in your financials. Again, I'm just playing the devil's advocate just so everybody. So this would be the ask for the furniture. Is everyone ready to move now to the additional software so you can, yes?
So, as far as furniture, this furniture, from my history, was probably moved from the other building 10 years ago, and it was in that place for probably 5 to 10 years. And I don't recall any big expenditures on furniture over the last 10 to 12 years. So I don't want to spend any more money. You hear me complaining about little things, but at some point we have to say we got to be professional. We got to make sure and it's probably going to last us another 10 or 12 years. So it's only, instead of being $6,000, it's probably only $600 a year we're spending. But I know it. So it's tough.
I agree. It's one other thought that I do have on this too, is we had been talking about potentially looking at other buildings and so forth, but we went ahead and signed the lease. It didn't look like there's anything really cost effective. So I believe in our goals we have not put in that we're continuing to search for additional, another building and so forth. So I think that's part of the conversation, and then in that move and new building and that kind of thing goes off the table, and then you talk about some nominal costs to improve this building. Is that fair to say?
Sure.
I mean,
Well, and I think, there's a lot to be said for how professional people are, and when they feel that their chair is comfortable so that they're not crunched up like a Halloween pretzel, and, they have a desk that doesn't have holes in it, they'll feel a little bit more professional. And I think it's also respectful to make sure that the people that work for you and with you have a fairly decent office and the tools they need to work with. We're not asking them to go back to chalk and blackboards. So,
okay,
But
thank
didn't
you.
we just buy them all chairs? You bought everybody chairs for $1,000.
I spent $1,000 on what chairs I could. Yes.
So,
I bought
so
myself.
these are additional
Did you get the
chairs.
chairs?
That's what I'm confused.
We were-
$3,000
We,
for the chairs.
we were
Well,
looking
they're
at
the
getting a
chairs
chair
that you're sitting in.
essentially. We wanted to make sure there's no.
They're not task chairs. I think there's only one task chair left on this.
Okay.
Okay, so does everyone understand this request of furniture and what it would be for? Okay.
Are you now clear about chairs?
I'm
Because
not
I think
clear
I'm
about
now
these-
more confused about chairs.
I'm really, I know that we bought new
Yeah,
chairs
yeah.
for people's desks. Those were already bought out of this year's budget, the $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
These other chairs, the navy chairs with the arms, where are they going?
So the chairs in my office, the Navy chairs, right? So right now upstairs is they have a mix of burgundy and navy chairs, the chairs that really should be down here, these chairs.
That's why I was sitting in that.
Right, and that's why this job to move. So if we can buy, I think it's 5 of the blue chairs upstairs, we get everything to match upstairs, then we can move the burgundy chairs back down here where they should be, because they will match. And then I think we have to purchase a few more. Hold on.
Is that the sled base?
6, yeah. These are sled base, chairs.
So
And then we
where
would
are
have-
the navy blue chairs going?
Upstairs.
Where upstairs?
They would go, let's see, your office has one burgundy and one that needs to be thrown away.
I think so, yeah.
So that means 2 going into Nate's office?
Yeah, and then I think there's one for Mr. O'Sullivan's office, and then Mrs. Osborne has one of those chairs in her office. And so they're going into the they're being spread off upstairs so the furniture matches. And plus, so there's some comfort level. And then the remaining sled chairs that are up here come down here, and then we only need to order 6 sled chairs to match this room.
And not have to use the folding chairs and extra rolly chairs,
Right.
and whatever
Right.
that is
Burgundy.
called, whatever that
Right.
thing
Yeah.
is.
So
Broken
if you want to see,
chairs.
there's one of the new task chairs right behind Miss Shopton.
Okay, so it'd be one more of those. It looks like.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I apologize, there would be 4 more of
5
those.
or 4 more.
Is that to match the
So-
chairs in the special ed office? That's what that is.
Okay. And the room that the students are in the
I was gonna
alt
ask
ed room, that room is in proper shape for the students?
We are just waiting. The carpet is done. The tile is done. Everything's moved out of there that doesn't need to be there and disposed of. We just have to wait for the landlord to paint. He's agreed to paint this summer. We've already upgraded furniture at no cost by shifting things when we moved, getting rid of stuff that was either broken or... It seems that room over the years became a place where people put stuff that they didn't know where to put anything else. And Nate and I spent, and Mrs. West, and like cleaning it out and making it better. So that room is all set to go for the fall, other than the paint.
And there's decent furniture for the kids.
Go ahead.
We took up one of the tables that was in the special ed office. That was way too large for that room. It made it very hard for people to move around in that room. It was actually a fire hazard, a tripping hazard trying to get out. You had to turn sideways to get through. So we took that large desk up, the large table up there, to match the other large table he had. It would give more surface area. And we brought down one of his smaller tables down into the special ed office, so we did that. He does have a number of chairs up there, and what we have done with some of the other chairs, the task-style chairs, that were kind of not great, but they were semi-manageable. We asked him if his students would like them, Jared, and he said they would love to have that. It makes, even though they're not great for an 8-hour day, for 2 hours or so to do work, it would be like that reward to sit in a better chair to do that. So we took up 1 or 2 of those chairs up to him as well.
We got rid of the folding buffet tables
Yep.
that were up there.
Oh, my goodness.
Yep.
So the table that Nate's talking about is one that a former board member had and donated to us. The mahogany is very nice.
Yeah, it's a very nice table.
So we were able to repurpose that upstairs, take a smaller table, put it in the special ed room so they can have meetings in there, and then get rid of some trash. So my expectation is that by the time Cole Brown starts, that room will be painted and they'll have a brand new space. And
That's good to hear.
yeah, they even gave us I guess the water cooler that he had up there was broken and falling over, and we.
I contacted, I asked if we could get another one. I asked Linda, and she had told me to ask Shar. I talked to Shar, and what wound up happening is the coolers are free. You just had to ask for them, because as long as we're bringing in water, so we got rid of the one that didn't work. It didn't cool. It was actually pretty broken. It would leak if you put new water in, and we took a new one up there for them, and now they have water, so they're not constantly having to come down here to get drinks. So all that's been working as well. Yeah, it's nice.
Good, that's good. Yeah, they need.
Yeah.
All right, so are there any other questions on furniture at this time? Okay, and again, the board has said you'd like to look at both pieces. Okay, so we'll move on to the next section, the next piece of
Yeah, I have notes on this, so hopefully you can follow along.
You good? You okay? You're okay?
Oh yeah, it's getting a little warm.
Are you alright?
So previously, when I talked about the furniture, we talked about absence management system. And we talked about the employee evaluation management system. I did get some feedback on the evaluation management system from the administrators. They do feel that there's some benefit to time management by using an electronic system to set appointments, to go over evaluations, to set goals, to send things for approving and revisions and signatures. So I'm bringing this back, and I've made some notes on this. The employee evaluation management system for the internal employees at the cost of $3,200 could be very easily paid for out of REAP between the three districts. The absence and substitute management could not. And then if you look at the frontline implementation, it's $6,000, but we have a $4,000 credit, so that leaves $2,000 for a total ask of $8,000. And then what we would do is during budgeting, we would budget in your individual districts for the following years as a way to pay for that for years to come. So the total for those two, the SAU, for this year would be $8,000 minus the, after the credits are applied and the REAP grants from the three districts.
I have a question.
Sure.
The recurring cost, does that mean the $9,200 is a yearly cost? Or?
Yeah, that'll be a recurring cost divided by 3, to however you apportion it. So it'll be about $3,000 a district.
Okay. And, when you say that money can come out of REAP, that means it's taken away from another area. So rather than doing something like buying books for kids.
REAP, the purpose of REAP is to supplement the other entitlements. Right? So Title II is your professional development. Right? So REAP is designed to supplement that Title II grant. So while it doesn't go directly to the students, it's still linked to the grant and is an allowable cost.
Right. I know we use our REAP grant to provide an art class for kids and to do things for the children directly. So, I mean, the idea that we would take the REAP money and pay for this because it's a good selling point, I don't know. I think it's taking it away from the kids directly.
Mr. Burr?
One of the things, though, is when you say you're taking away from the kids, you will free up the administration's time to get out there and better work with the students and work with the teachers, which gives the students more benefits than just some material books or a small itemized session. This will be a benefit throughout the whole year for all students. Everybody would be able to benefit from this because it frees up your administrators. Trust me, one of my major jobs as a building level administrator was just supervision and evaluation of staff. And if I could get any of that time back and be able to work with the students on a more regular basis, I would greatly have traded it for some textbooks at a small level of $1,000 per district. Because it really is one of the hardest things to do is just get that free time to get out there and work with the students. And as the students see the administrators in the buildings more, behaviors go down, morale goes up, teachers' buy-in goes up because they see the educational leaders of the building out and about with the students.
So it becomes a climate and culture issue.
That's correct.
Going to go back to the finance piece.
Yep.
So right now, the process is, can we just break this down, I guess, a little bit? You've got absence and substitute management. So right now, people are turning in, this hits payroll. So we're keying payroll manually, off of paper for time off that's
Well,
been taken.
you're getting different formats from each district when it comes to your substitute reports. So in Nottingham, it's handwritten. In Northwood, it's a spreadsheet. And in Stratford, I think it's a spreadsheet. So the absence management will allow a report, so Missy doesn't need to go through each of those to figure out who was out, why was out, da da da. It's easily exportable. So when we're talking about the fact that the sun is setting on ADS over the next couple of years, and we're going to have to look at probably infinite visions is what you'll end up, or some option like that in the future. You want something that's going to either export to a CSV spreadsheet and then import back in. This will do that. We talked to Mr. Stanley, and he felt like he could integrate that.
Mr. Stanley's in technical.
Yeah, and I'll give you an update on him too if you'd like later. But
so is this also
in sitting with Linda Osborne and having a conversation about these things, she said to me, I don't want you to think I'm being selfish and that I want you this stuff for myself. I want it to reduce the stress in the employee to gain more time out of their lives, work lives and other lives, and to make things more efficient and less laborious. So, Mr. Winslow, did you?
I was just going to say, I think this program where I teach, we use it, and when you need a sub, it contacts all the available subs for it. So it's not a secretary calling up in the morning trying to book subs for people anymore. It frees up all that time. So it's basically,
it uses an app.
Anyone on the sub list has an app, and they just get a ping anytime a teacher puts in that they need a substitute, and then whoever wants it picks it up. And it takes the secretary right out of it unless it gets to the morning of and still no one's picked it up, then they kind of scramble or whatever, as they do now.
So would that remove the stipend we have that we pay someone to do that?
Well, I don't think it would move it immediately, but that could be a long-term vision, is that maybe centralize it to one stipend for the 3 districts instead of individually. That, because you're always going to have the 5:30 emergency where your payment's not going to go out. But I could definitely see it reducing things over time. Maybe not this year, but maybe after it's implemented and you take a look and you analyze and you have discussions. I think automating that could potentially reduce some labor costs.
And the other piece, the absence piece. So right now, we were talking about an accrual that was very costly, that we didn't have visibility to. And I don't mean this in a negative way. This is just the cost of doing business. So you have these accruals, you're going to have these things that need to be managed. So right now, that's all done manually. So someone has to get a list and say, okay, I'm allowed X amount of hours of vacation time or sick or whatever. And someone's going to draw that down. And so...
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's another... I don't know if this will do that. It will tell you... I mean, yes, I'm sure there's a way to link it. I'm not going to say I'm a software expert. But I think there's another way to get you, the board, that information.
Well, I don't know that we need that per se, but I'm just saying...
it's definitely going to keep track and feed in.
Right, so you're going to get better accrual data to your
error.
accounting department when this stuff comes in.
Right, and then hopefully once you rebudget and upgrade your overall financial system, it'll make things even a little more. I mean, it'd be really nice. So one of the struggles, I'm just going to get off task for a minute, is employee self-service, which is when you go in and record your time and everything else. That would link to this, and then it would call the sub knowing that you're going to be absent, right? But with our version of ProFund, ADS, you would have to buy an individual site license for each person, each employee, to be able to access the employee self-service module. So as we look at upgrading, we're trying to reduce that cost and get things to integrate and talk to each other. With the overall goal here is efficiency, and it's making sure people aren't overwhelmed with their position. But the potential long-term benefit is you may not need as much labor cost in certain areas.
Well, it helps with planning if people go in and
This is like looking ahead vision stuff.
So what about this cost, the annual subscription, how do we know that that's going to stay at the $9,200 once that you buy into this program? I mean,
you never really know that. But what I would say is there's always competition, and there's always the ability to negotiate and say this isn't acceptable. I'm switching to X, and see what your representative comes back with. I haven't seen a lot of subscription services increase at the rate that labor increases. I haven't seen a huge, even when Pearson bought everything, you didn't see a huge spike in the cost.
So these costs that we're looking at, the 6,000 and the 9,200, those are the costs, and they're broken up individually underneath, and they all both tally to, what, 15.2?
Right, and then you have a $4,000 credit.
And so 15.2 minus 4 is the 11.2, and then you're going to use REAP for 3,200 of it. And this frontline implementation of 4,000
credit, yeah.
Okay, so there's the credit.
whose
So
REAP money are you using?
Well, I've talked to the administrators. It would be out of the you would take 3,200, about 1,050 out of each district.
Is
Roughly 1,060.
and the trade-off would be, are we saying flat out here, the trade-off for that would be that your paraprofessionals and others that are manually inputting time would then have more hands-on time with their students?
I would say that with the absent management, I'm not saying that, because they're still going to have to do timesheets,
Okay.
but it's going to make the substitute procurement
Piece,
process
Which
more
is
efficient.
hell.
The supervision
And planning, especially
yeah,
if people are putting
right,
in,
right.
I know I have a doctor's appointment on November 15th, and you put it in on September 1st.
Would this also keep track of the employees who are salaried at the SAU, their time off?
Sure, you could input that.
Because I think that's something we need to make
Don't you
sure
think?
happens.
I think so.
Dr. Shabda?
I was just going to say, but why? I mean, wouldn't that be something we get from HR? Well, I'm saying HR, from not Nancy anymore, Linda.
Yeah.
Because
What?
this is designed to, just keep track of people and call, and if we need a substitute. Don't we have to? Isn't there a cost to put every single person in?
No.
No, there isn't.
Unlimited
No.
usage for internal and
But can I just back up for a second? 'Cause let me finish Mrs. Levinson's question before I forget it. So the absence and substitute management would not free up paraprofessional and teaching staff's time, other than it will with planning and in minor increments, because they know it's the employee it's the amount of time it takes for supervision and evaluation, which I think Mr. Byrne did a nice job explaining, the amount of time that takes. Because you do a pre-observation conference, then you do an observation, you do a post-observation, you do a write-up, you send the write-up, the employee has some feedback for the write-up. If you can do that electronically, that's going to open up time for your administrators and your teaching staff.
And you can also look, or I believe you'd be able to look back as well. So next year, it's much easier to access last year's evaluation and
Right.
your professional development plan and, all of that.
So, Ms. Shabda, you were talking about the absence management. Why would you do that for the SAU?
Yep.
I mean, the SAU has a process. I'd like to see it go electronic at some point. But basically, the SAU process is people put in a time off request. It goes to me. I sign off on it. It goes to Missy. If I have time off, I give it to Nate or Mr. O'Sullivan to sign off on. So, for instance, I just got back from vacation. Somebody signed off. I think it was you.
Yep.
And that goes to Missy. So there is a process for that within the SAU that we use.
I'm just saying, it's easier to
However-
draw
Oh,
down.
it'd be
draw down.
absolutely easier.
However,
Debbie, I get what you're saying.
We did have a discussion at our last meeting where I posed a question to our former superintendent and asked, well, if there was a person that, had doctor's appointments in the morning or registering her car, something like that, how do you keep track of that? Do you take personal days? Do you take portions of vacation days? How do you keep track of that? And he said, we could do this, but that's not what they do. And I will not discuss this unless we're non-public, but I think that there should be a little bit more accountability for that type of thing.
Well, I do think, though, just in general, that this would make it a little cleaner when you're drawing down total amounts. So if you have 60 hours available and you use 4 in this payroll section, it seems as though it would be a bit easier to come through electronically and calculate data for you.
Not with this one. This
No.
one, it doesn't do that. That's the next part that he was talking about.
Okay.
Currently, you have to have each individual person sign into it.
Mhm.
Hopefully, that's the way we want to go down the line, but that's not this. This is really just to make sure that we can put in absences for substitute calls and make sure that people get called on a regular basis and they know ahead of time, so you're not tracking everything, so you know
Okay.
you have a substitute. This isn't meant to keep track of
Right.
your
Time.
your time.
Right, and the goal there is there's always times in each building where there aren't available substitutes, and that has an impact on your kids.
So this program keeps track of substitutes. There's an app that will automatically let people know on the list.
And then
when
they
a
accept
substitute
it
is
or
needed.
not.
And then it also keeps track of all the evaluations and professional development?
The other module, there's 2 modules there.
So-
Two strands.
Okay.
There's two modules.
Okay.
So the second, the employee, so if you look under itemized description, you see the absence and substitute management, right? And then the employee evaluation management has to do with the supervision and evaluation plan and getting that in there and making that more efficient.
Frontline's an a la carte type program. You can buy different components. So like if you're going to go to a buffet, you can't just take everything you want. You can at a buffet, but at this you have to take each individual thing you want to order.
So much working with MSB.
Correct. So like they offer more of some of the different programs, but they're more expensive. So what we wanted to start with them is what we felt was absolutely necessary to start and what would better the schools first off. And then if we see these are working well and we can budget appropriately, maybe add some of those other desires in there down the line because they have multiple modulars. These are just 2 of them that we want to start with this year.
For instance, they have a Medicaid module, but it's not offered in New Hampshire, but it will be, and that might potentially save you money.
Hours working.
One other quick question that I do have is that we're all aware, I just believe that we should make forward-looking decisions and understand pretty much whatever knowledge we have, let's take it into consideration. So we know that ADS is obsolete, it's about to come to the point where it won't be supported.
Mm-hmm.
So in searching for that, I believe that would be an item.
Do you want an update?
Well, I'm just wondering, my question would be, will these lock on? Would we end up with a system that would usurp this, if you will?
I don't think we'll end up with a system that usurps this. In our conversations with Mr. Stanley, he felt like he could integrate from one to another depending.
So you wouldn't have to buy as many modules on another system for your ADS replacement?
Well, I can't fully answer the ADS replacement question right now. I can tell you where we're at in that process. Mr. O'Sullivan has paired with SAU 16, who also is searching for a new program. They've gone over to visit Barrington, and now they're going to visit another place that uses Infinite Visions, which is another Tyler product. And so what he will do, and he's bringing some of the staff here on that too, because it's really going to be when a new financial software, you want to make sure that everybody's sort of gung-ho and ready to go with it. His plan, although not totally clear, he's talked to me about 2 different things. He said, I think when he first started last week, he said that he thought that budgeting for that in the next budget cycle was a little premature. But then a few days ago, he felt like he was making enough progress to make a recommendation in the budget for that. Our hope, or at least my hope in education, is that these next generation systems become single platform. So if that happens, and let's say that Tyler or anybody comes out with a multi-platform which includes a student information system, such as Infinite Campus, linked to your school lunch system, linked to your nursing, your special ed system, your absence management system, your employee self-serve system. I mean, if we can get to the point, and I think technology is definitely going there, but we don't want to go first, never, because we want somebody else to go first and work out the bugs, is that we're looking at a single subscription for all the information systems across all 3 districts. That's where it's headed. I take frequent surveys, and you can see the themes within the surveys and what business and industry is thinking. And then you can see the themes in the Parthenon surveys where they're talking about single sign-on for everything, which will potentially reduce your cost overall. You pay a lot of subscription fees. You pay for snaps, you pay for My School Bus, or whatever you use. You pay for your SIS, your MMS, your Do you use MMS? Yeah.
I don't.
No, you use Web to School. And Northwood's MMS. If we can start to vision forward and implement some of these things slowly, then I think you're going to potentially save money in the long run when those next generation information systems.
You'll go down in server costs as well because most of it's going to be cloud-based, so you won't need to update your servers so often because it will be stored for you.
Right.
You'll
because,
have a backup.
for instance, you have a portion of money budgeted in the SAU for a server upgrade this year. If we're talking cloud-based, then there's no need for that.
So you don't think that this would be redundant, or is it too soon to make this decision when you talk about
I don't
your
think you're
servers
looking,
and...
Yeah, I don't think you're looking at a redundancy issue here with your next financial management software. I think you're looking at an integration issue.
Okay.
And we've already met with Mr. Stanley, and he feels like he could integrate.
So I guess that would be the big question I think that people would ask us. Did you make a decision fully understanding that you are on a path to implement other software issues and hardware issues and servers and so forth? And did you look at your overall tech plan? And
As much
was
as
this
is
the
possible.
appropriate time? Well, I mean,
All of this is a moving target.
right. But is
In
this?
that respect.
Are we starting here, or should we start here and move forward? Again, I'm not of a mind at all to. I'm not trying to. I'm just asking the question: are we moving in a project plan manner and putting this in at the right time, or would it be okay to say we philosophically agree with this, but where is it in the project plan? That's all I'm asking. And is that not the case? Is it something that should happen now, separate and freestanding, and it will not be an impact to future technical purchases?
I don't believe this is going to be an impact of future technical purchases, because if you make a technical purchase, you can, and you need to, you can either integrate or you can switch platforms. These are offered by other entities.
Right. I just think the board would say, "Gosh,
Yeah.
did we really? Should we only kept this 6 months and now we're replacing it with something else?" Or is it cost effective?
Well,
To
I
do
would
it.
say that you're purchasing a yearly subscription.
Yeah. So even if you switched, you'd still have that yearly subscription elsewhere.
Okay. I just think it's good to have the conversation.
So the
to
risk
understand
would
exactly what we're
be
doing.
the startup cost.
Exactly.
In that scenario, if
Correct.
a year from now
Yes.
this was bogus or didn't do what we were hoping it was going to do, what we're really risking, I'm asking for my clarity, what we're really risking is the startup cost, essentially,
Which
in that respect.
says implementation is 6,000, but we're getting 4,000 off, so it's actually a risk of 2,000. Is that correct?
Well,
Correct.
that $4,000 still belongs to us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like,
Right.
it's not
Okay.
free money.
It's
Yeah,
a
our
credit
money.
from what happened was you budgeted in 3 different places for the same thing and paid for it, and then they came back very honestly and said, "This is not necessary. We're giving you a credit." So
And
But they would refund us. I didn't mean to interrupt you, sorry.
they might. I mean,
Oh.
you have to. The
And-
credits can't stay forever.
And the REAP money, I just want to make sure that you said you discussed it with our principals, because I know that we pay stipends at a REAP.
Yeah.
We
You have
offer
a-
programs
so-
for kids. So
so-
if we're going to take,
Yeah.
$1,500 or so out of our REAP money,
It would be
then how are we going to
1,000.
fund those
Right.
things?
It's 1,050. Well, here's an interesting twist in REAP right now. I got an email about 2 weeks ago that the REAP used to run for 2 years, was it? And the federal government just decided it's going to run for a year. So that means your older REAP funds need to be spent by August 30th.
Or lose it.
or lose it. So that was an email that came from the US DOE. So there's been a change in how they do that, and they said they sent us a notice, but we can't find that anywhere.
And that would be good for this year,
Yep.
because we might have money left
Right.
over. I'm not sure if we have, but next year,
Next year, you would want to budget in your,
Right.
you would want to bring it down to your local operating budget.
we
Right.
offer the art program, summer art
Right.
program. We offer
But you
during
wouldn't-
the year
but you
art
wouldn't-
program. We pay several stipends out of REAP. We
But-
use our REAP.
Next year, we wouldn't use it out of REAP. He's saying use the remainder of this REAP, and
Okay.
next year we
And
budget.
budget in your plan, as part of your
The
budget
$1,000.
planning process.
Right.
1,060.
You know,
So there's
In
no,
software.
there's no student impact to REAP because you have this
That's
use
how
it
it
or
works.
lose it
That's-
expiration that's hitting us in a month.
Less than a month.
Month and a half.
Did
Yes,
you-
Mrs. Gordon.
This, the heads of buildings and things, this is a program that they all are interested in using and feel is what they want. I mean, before we put it all into place.
Your building principals?
They want this.
Absolutely.
This
Yeah.
is the
I
one
have
they want.
emails actually.
Okay.
I asked
Well, I
for
trust you. I just
their-
wanted
No,
to-
no, 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 no. I mean, I'm just saying, I spent a lot of time emailing with Chris, Jocelyn, and
And this
Scott
is what you want.
about what they saw as potential benefits or drawbacks. Of course, you're going to get more feedback from the principals about the employee supervision and evaluation process
Right.
because it potentially can free up some time for them to do other things within the building. But they were all in support of automation.
And
as much
is
as
this
we can.
something that over time you may want to add modules to? I mean,
I think that if Frontline stays in the current, or everybody right now, stays in the current format of buying, purchasing modules for specific
Yeah.
activities, we may want to, but again, some of those modules would eliminate other things, like Medicaid. You pay 8% of a transaction fee. If they come out with a New Hampshire Medicaid module,
They being frontline.
Frontline,
They,
which they have in other states,
right.
we may look at that from a cost standpoint and say this is cheaper. It would require X amount of labor hours at the districts, but it would still save. I think for me, starting this position, I'm looking for ways to make things more efficient, to make employees happier, to reduce costs where I can, and to automate as much as we can.
And it will improve efficiency, and it should be some cost benefit to us overall with the financials.
Well, especially with your,
Yes,
yeah.
that's kind of where I'm always aiming.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone have any additional questions around the software piece? Could we get a summary right now then of, you've got 28,91604 that you have in savings with regard to personnel in the budget for this year that we
Yep.
just started July 1st. And you'd like to spend 6,400 of it for furniture?
Yep.
And then this would net out to
8,000.
8,000. So 14,400. So $14,400 out of the 28, so a little less than half. All right. Does anyone have any other questions about the cost?
I just again think that the furniture amount, since it wasn't budgeted, and I know that it looks like on paper right now we have some savings for next year, but you do not know what happens. Like this year we didn't predict
Conversely,
what
we
was
can have
going-
even more savings.
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah, okay. I just wonder if we have to buy all of the furniture at once. If you were to spend half of it, $3,000, rather than almost, is it 64 or is it almost 65? What is the amount?
It's 64, 76, 48 minus 79.90.
Okay, so it's
So it's 64.
We also had this conversation about the furniture multiple times. I feel like last year and the year before we talked about furniture. We joked about Bob not having a chair.
Yes.
We joked about like the disrepair of the furniture upstairs. I feel like we've had this conversation for at least the last 2 years, and maybe I'm.
Well, it was on hold because of Bob wanted to move. He wanted a better office.
Right. So let's say 2 years ago we recognized that furniture needed to
Okay,
be
and
replaced.
Yes, and so Scott did replace the chairs upstairs. They've already been purchased out of this last budget
Right.
that we're gone into a deficit
No,
spending.
no.
I thought you said the $1,000
They're
was out of
purchased
last
out
year's.
of this
Is
year's
that
budget.
this year's
July
budget?
It was the budget amount for a new desk for me.
Okay.
So
Okay, so you
it's
already
already
spent
spent.
So I want to back up. This furniture conversation has gone on a lot more than 2
Yeah,
years.
that's why I said I only remember.
And I
it for 2
think
years.
that if you look at your fund balance each year, it's reflected in your fund balances that purchases weren't made because there was an anticipation that we may be moving. We're not moving.
So the reason I'm saying that is because when you say, do we have to do it all at one time? It doesn't seem like it's all at one time. We've had the discussion multiple times, and we've sort of been nickel and diming them, and so he got $1,000, and I don't know what's happened with Bob's chair that he was like falling out of, and blah blah blah. But it feels like this conversation has been going on for quite a while, and every time we push it forward, we push it forward, we push it forward.
No, that's not
Well, I want
exactly
to say,
true.
can I just say one thing, because I want to try to move the conversation so that everyone that hasn't had a chance to speak can, and Mr. Winslow's been waiting.
I was just going to make a motion to approve
Oh.
$14,400 for furniture and software.
Second.
Thank you.
All right, do you have that, Mr. Winslow and Mrs. Lowe? All right, so now we can have we've had discussion, obviously, so Debbie, if you were about to say something, you can say it.
Well, I'm just going to say that we have never tabled it. We had our former administration, did not want to purchase anything because the plan was to move. So we knew that we had some issues. I didn't realize we were talking, I don't think we ever had a dollar amount that it was going to be over $7,500.
We did a few meetings ago.
70. Well, Scott brought that up, and we said not right now because
So that's when we tabled it.
yes,
Right.
we did not approve it at that point.
I don't think we even voted. I think
No.
we tabled it.
Yeah, that's just, we
Yes.
knew we were in a deficit
Deficit
position,
spending.
which would not be fiscally
Right,
appropriate
right.
to buy things. So, this is coming out of the budget that we're currently in, not driving the additional,
Correct.
and it's not touching the
Last
unassigned
year,
fund
no.
balance.
No.
I think, as a board, we should also be directive about our thoughts on the building. I believe, from what I'm hearing, that we're not going to be distracted this year, at least, by looking for other places and so forth. That's not in our goals, so our thought is to improve this location.
Yes.
And is that the understanding that we're at, so we're not continuing to kind of,
Well, we're under a 3-year lease, correct?
correct? Well, we signed it year to year, we'll have another opportunity, we're going to have to re-up again.
Yep.
So it was probably the board's thought to renew the lease and not be, to this year, focus on the academics, this particular building, making it appropriate, looking at technology, having a new technology person. So is that I don't want to speak for you, is that the thought and the plan for this board based on our goals?
This is a nice central location for all three districts. It's just so central.
So there's a trade-off here in that we've talked about this, we have some deficiencies in aesthetics and also in safety and employee satisfaction, if you will, around the furniture. We're trading off, if you will. We're not looking to change the building, sign a new lease, look for something else and pay more and move and all of that. So we're settling down here at least for the near term. Is that?
Yes.
So I do think we have to evaluate those trade-offs. Yes, Mr. Ruth?
Move the question, please. Point of order.
Okay. So I think everyone has had an opportunity to speak, and we would be voting on both items together. All right, then. That said, all those in favor?
Of spending,
14,400.
14,400.
Okay, anyone opposed? Okay. So we have 9-1. Okay. All right. And those will take place probably over the summer? Or?
We will start in the morning
No? All right.
at 10.
All right. And we need had another item called time adjustment?
And we did it, and she double coded it. It was Mrs. Cannella. So we did it with a personnel.
I thought that you were perhaps talking about the hours of the SAU. Are you closing on Fridays or working Fridays or?
We are not closing any day. People do have the option of working 4 10-hour days, or for instance, this week with 2 nights out, I may flex a little time on Friday. Nate may flex a little time on Friday, but we're open. And I base that rather than, I know in the past, we've come and talked about a 4-day work week.
They're doing 10. I was just
and the response has always been like, you guys are in charge to do what you want, but I feel like we need to be open 5 days.
Okay.
And so people are here working. Some may be working 10s, some may be working 8s, some might be working 15s.
The support staff have also agreed to make sure they cover each other so that someone will always be here on either Monday or Friday. So they have alternated their 4-day weeks to make sure that you have Mondays or Fridays covered. So it will be open.
Awesome. That's very good.
Yeah, that's fun.
And they seemed pleased with that. When I stopped by last week to sign paperwork, they seemed pretty pleased with the arrangement.
Yes.
Yeah, your staff at the SAU is working so well together. I mean, the hourly staff, there's a lot of change going on, so there's always a little conflict generally between the administration and the hourly staff. But they really pull together and work hard and figure things out and figure out schedules and who's going to do this and make sure that everything's covered. I'm very happy with their demeanor and their performance since I started. And it was good before, too. But.
There's one thing I would like to mention, and I do think that this board has been a positive board. And when asked, we have changed salary schedules. We've added additional funding for the preschool staff. You know, we were looking into the building. We've added some positions, part-time and so forth, around technology. We've approved this. So I'm hoping that the staff perceives the joint board as positive and as, you know, we have to talk things through. We have to take on the fiscal understanding. But at the same time, I think that the board has made best efforts to be a positive influence in this SAU.
I agree, and that might be the topic of my newsletter, is pointing out some of those things. That's well in process. And tomorrow, just to let the board know, my first order of business when I get here is to sit down and let them know what you approved as a group, and to echo that sentiment.
Thank you. Right, we'll move on to, I'm sorry.
I was going to ask if we could, because of the time and there's still things on this agenda, if we'd be able to table the policies until our next meeting.
Is that the board's pleasure?
Because there's quite a few of them,
Good.
and it's sort of getting late.
Do we have any hot policies?
The only thing I'd like to do is, I was meeting with Mr. Campo, the auditor, today, and we were going through policies, and there's a policy you're going to want to have in place. I'm not looking for you to do anything with it tonight, but I did draft it myself this afternoon, and I'd like to just pass it out for you to take with you, and then I'll put it on. It's an investment policy, and you might say to yourself, well, we don't really invest things at the SAU, but selecting a bank account, an interest-bearing bank account, is an investment, and you should have an accompanying policy for that. So whatever the board decides about the rest of the policies, I have no objection to, but I want to get these out to you to review because I'm going to put them on the next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it doesn't have a title because I did it. It's an investment policy. It'll have the next one you see will be in your format.
There is an investment policy out there on the DFI or something.
Yeah,
with
it's
the-
a.
Okay, I
But
don't
you
know.
don't have.
Oh,
Yeah, the joint board doesn't have one. This is from the School Boards Association.
thank you.
You're welcome. So you don't need to look at that now. You can just take it with your packet. We can do it next time.
So there's a hot button on that.
It's going to show up in your letter, but no. You can have it. I mean, it's going to show up in your governance letter, but if we can address it when we're doing other things, then maybe or maybe the governance letter said that's been addressed, it's done. So I did give a copy of the draft to the auditor today, saying this is what we're going to propose. And so we're, just keeping ahead of it.
Okay. The agenda format we talked briefly about at the last meeting, so we'll use that for the next. Open items and the joint board timeline. I think maybe for the next meeting we can just come forward and discuss what we think we have for open items. And timeline, which is what we do month to month, and I'm hoping the management committee will meet in the interim. Mr. McGuigan has been away, and that will kind of dovetail with the other discussions the management committee is having. The goals for the final format, Mr. Rooney, you had mentioned you wanted to add perhaps a goal, and so I wasn't sure. I thought I'd wait until you mentioned that.
So, and I don't have a copy. Eventually, I'd like a copy of the goals. I don't have those anywhere. I don't even know.
We had it in the packet.
But one of the things that my focus has been since some events of this year is school safety. And that's not showing up as a goal for me, and I'd like it to, because Nate and I and Mr. O'Sullivan are going to be spending a lot of time, for instance, hardening the building. The same in Northwood, we've got an architectural study that we're just about to meet on Wednesday. In Stratford, we've got a security. In Nottingham, you've got a security grant. We have the Homeland Security coming to do tabletop exercises and review the EOPS again and take a walk through the building. So we're doing a lot. I'm going to spend a lot of time with that, and I'd really like that reflected in the goals because I'm going to be doing it anyway, and I think it's important. So.
Okay.
But I could email you a goal.
Does the board find it acceptable that I work with Mr. Rooney on this final goal, and then we'll bring the final format forward to you for August?
Yes.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. You just mentioned the management committee. Who's on the management committee, and how do we decide?
We voted when we had our reorganization, and so we have. I'm on it. Mr. McGuigan is on it. Mrs. Lowe.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any committee updates? All right. Our future meeting dates, August 27th is acceptable to everyone. And then we have September 24th. I would also encourage you to look at the New Hampshire School Boards Association. They have some training coming up, I believe. Yes?
Finish that sentence that you triggered something I was going to ask.
Okay. Just some training that's coming up. I don't know. I didn't print it, but I think they had some in August and September.
Yes.
And around policy and so forth.
And budgeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was one in October that's free. Eric and I both signed on, registered for that today.
And which one is that?
It's October 11th. Excuse me, 10th.
I think it's the 10th.
We'll have to talk with
Columbus
our local
Day,
board
is that
because
what
it
it is?
falls
Columbus
on
Day?
It's Columbus Week. But Columbus Day, I think, is that Monday, and
Yeah.
this meeting is that Wednesday.
But it's one of our board meetings.
But it is
anyway,
a free
we can talk
training
about that.
on budgeting, which as a new board member going into the budget season,
I think it's
Yeah, and I think we might consider at the local level. You probably want to buy, get this from the municipal, the LGC.
And
You can purchase
we will
these.
pay for that.
Yes, so this is something that I think is
Is
probably
that a
helpful.
personal copy or a
It's
generally?
mine. This is
or-
mine. But
No, I'm sorry. Generally, do you have your own copy? I should say.
you can look at it.
Or is it something that you get one per board?
No,
So I was-
You can purchase one and we will pay for it.
Yeah, you typically you'd order it at your local meeting. You can
Or I
ask to
could
have
do
it
a group order and split it up. It's up to you guys.
Whatever you want. So again, I think those are helpful. I know we talked about the management committee. Keith was interested in it. It talks about a lot. You were at the last training with it, as was Mrs. Brosnan, and it's very helpful.
Yes.
Okay.
What if things like trainings that the School Board Association puts out that are not free? For example, one of the ones they put out there
Local board.
is okay. So there's no mechanism within the joint board. That's all done on a
Right.
local level. Okay.
But I've never seen a local board say no.
Yeah, we pay for
Well,
it.
You have budget.
Right, 'cause I want to go
We
to
will
Pitt.
not pay for your mileage.
Oh, Kidder,
We will
wait,
pay for
so the
the-
Kidder Law Conference?
Okay. All right, so do we have any other business to come before the board?
I'm sorry, did we need to vote on moving policies off or not?
No, as long as the board has some consensus on that they're going to move those forward. I think that's really about everything.
We don't need a non-public.
We don't necessarily need a non-public if people will, at their local boards, look at the policy at CBI and understand that we will be doing an interim in September, so we should be really ready to just have that in our thoughts in August. Yes?
I do have a question. So Scott started July 1st.
Mhm.
Welcome, Scott. Awesome. But
That's soon.
do we already have his goals in place?
We did do the goals, and we agreed to them at the last meeting. So the only thing open on the goals, right, there's nothing really open on the goals.
Okay. So he's clear about.
Yes.
But he's asking to add a goal
To
around
add
safety.
a goal.
Right,
Right.
aside from
And then once
that.
then I'll have a copy after we do that.
Right.
And then,
So we have goals in place that were voted on, not actually the meeting before.
the meeting
Yes.
It
before.
was 2 meetings ago.
Yes. So we have those. CBI is in there. It's an informal, if you will, preliminary item for September.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to make sure that we meet those obligations. So if there's, is that good?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we have the goals, they were all formatted, but we wanted to put them into more of a narrative, I guess, and I just knew that you had wanted to add one more, so with your leave, I'll work that with him, and then we'll put it into a final narrative.
Awesome.
It'll run through with Mrs. Lowe and Mr. McGuigan, and then it will come into your next packet.
Perfect.
All right,
Thank you for that.
you're welcome. Anything else? All right,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
all
My
in favor?
favorite motion. Well done, Debbie.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Burns.
Thank you.